Welcome to Quantum Leap, Data Centers of the Future. We are so glad to have you with us here in Tysons Corner, Virginia, and the greater Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for this exciting day. We really do have a fantastic agenda for you coming up. And two quick reminders. First, before I get to reminders, my name is Matt Erskine. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Connected DMV. We are the cross-sector nonprofit here for the Greater Washington region, driving big economic development initiatives, transformational initiatives. By cross-sector, I mean industry, government, higher education, community, and other nonprofits. We are pleased to welcome you here. Two quick reminders. We will be here in this session until noon today, and then we'll have some time for networking afterwards. The other reminder is you're part of a very special group. You get to be here before the formal official programming for Quantum World Congress starts tomorrow morning. Today is devoted to this session, some of the boot camp sessions and other workshops, so we're delighted to have you here this morning. It's my pleasure to kick us off, and I'd like to welcome Buddy Reiser, who will be introducing our first keynote speaker. Buddy is the CEO of Economic Development for Loudoun County. Loudoun County is one of our big counties here in our region and one of the leaders in terms of the data center space. Buddy has been a tremendous regional leader and a tremendous partner to us at Connected DMV and really to driving advanced technology and economic development for our region. So please join me in welcoming Buddy Reiser.
Hi everyone, good morning. It's great to see everyone. I'm a big believer in data. Data drives pretty much everything I've done in the last 20 years. I'm also a believer in what data can do to drive a community. We've only begun to scratch the surface, but I will tell you how data has impacted my community in Loudoun County. We have, over the last 16 years, become the largest data center location in the world. We currently have about 31 million square feet of data center space in our county alone. We are very, very excited that we've been able to create a hub of excellence around data centers. We have more than 15,000 people that are employed in our data centers. What has it meant to Loudoun County? I'll tell you, having data centers in our county has completely changed the dynamic of who we are. You know, we have always been considered one of the outer suburbs. We've always been considered a great location for agriculture and a great location for wineries. But when we started attracting data centers, and it started all the way back with AOL in 1997, they put their first ever data center in our community. We have been able to completely transform who we are as a community. This year, data centers will contribute $750 million in local tax revenue to our community. That's about a third of all of our budget in Loudoun. And data centers only take up about 5% of our land, so it's a great return on our investment. What does that mean? Well, that means dozens of new schools. That means new programs for our kids. That means billions of dollars in new road projects. It means Metro coming to Washington. It means a better quality of life for the people we serve. We're committed to the industry. We've been great partners with the industry. And I think what you're going to see by the end of the day is that we have just started to scratch the surface on the infrastructure piece and how data centers are going to continue to drive business forward. It's my honor today to introduce somebody who's made an amazing impact in our community in a very short time. George Mason University President Gregory Washington leads Virginia's largest and most diverse public university. Washington is the former engineering dean at Ohio State University and the University of California in Irvine. An accomplished researcher specializing in dynamic systems with an emphasis in the modeling and control of smart material structures and systems. He has conducted research for the National Science Foundation, NASA, General Motors, the Air Force Research Laboratory, the U.S. Army Office, among others. In February 2023, Washington was elected to the National Academy of Engineering, the highest engineering honor in the country. Not only an administrator, an engineer. Like me, a first-generation college graduate, Washington is a New York City native who attended high school in North Carolina. He earned a bachelor's and master's degrees and PhD, all in mechanical engineering at North Carolina State University. He has done amazing things, and he, like our industry, is just beginning to scratch the surface of his impact. Please welcome Dr. Greg Washington.
How are you all doing today? Now, Buddy told me, he said, I'm not going to say much about you, just a little bit. And I was, oh my God. Anyway, well, thank you all. And thank you for the introduction, Buddy. And I want to welcome all of you to the Quantum World Congress 2023. It's great to see you all here today, and it's great to welcome you all to Northern Virginia. From what I can see of the program, it's going to be a fantastic program. Now, I have this. Let's see if... very good. So, a little something about George Mason, just so that you know who you're talking to. We're Virginia's largest public university. We're a public R1 research institution, and we have a little more than 40,000 students. We're first in social mobility in this region. That's not just in Virginia, but in the whole DMV region. What does that mean? It means that we identify students from modest means, students who come from backgrounds and from areas that, for lack of a better way of saying it, where they're high ability but low resourced. And we position those students for success. And we do that like very few in the country can. And we also manage the 27 small business development centers that are all throughout this region and all throughout the state of Virginia. Last year we had a $3.3 billion economic impact. All of that is leading to significant outcomes for the institution. We just, this past year, entered into the top 50. We were actually, in terms of public institutions, we were ranked 33 in the Wall Street Journal this year, 40 in Forbes, and 51 in U.S. News. And we're a top 20 institution in the country for innovation. And so we've had a great year. Lots of good things have happened at our campus, and we look forward to that kind of success continuing. But that's not why I'm here to talk to you today. Look, the reality is we're dealing with significant and unprecedented global challenges here in the world. On my way in this morning, I got an article on my feed that basically said that the amount of sea ice in Antarctica is substantially lower than what we predicted. You know, Antarctica is coming off winter. And so as they move into their warm season, the sea ice at the end of the winter is almost 6 times lower than what they thought it would be due to climate change. And so we look at climate change and issues like that as what we call level 1 grand challenges. And then we have issues like level 2 challenges as well, from aging population to education and equality. Our infrastructure needs are part of these level 2 challenges. And so level 1 challenges can really be, can eliminate our way of life very easily, and level 2 challenges can be disruptive. That's what we're dealing with today. Okay, and what's driving it? Well, the stresses are coming really from demographic increases, and these demographic increases are bringing unprecedented stresses, many of which I just highlighted and discussed. I won't talk about them in detail, but they're real. But it also brings about unprecedented opportunities, from new products to new markets, new ways of doing things, automation, a new business cycle, the new economy that has sprung up globally has presented us with new tools to help us solve many of the challenges that are in front of us. I contend to you that quantum is indeed a tool. Here are the top opportunities as we see them moving forward, from artificial intelligence to machine learning to quantum technologies, datafication, a whole host of blockchain and financial technologies, all the way here, and I won't talk about them all in detail. I really want to talk specifically about what's happening in the quantum space and what's happening. Oh, whoa. Okay. All right, let me go back. Here we go. And so at George Mason University, we are really focused in this space and focused significantly. We're one of the early universities to get into quantum, and our role has really been focused in terms of our Quantum Science and Engineering Center. And look, the center's mission is to accelerate the second quantum revolution by supporting transdisciplinary quantum research and education initiatives. Our QSEC entity has about 34 faculty. That's 28 faculty from Mason, 3 NIST researchers, 2 researchers from NRL, and then 1 faculty member, 1 additional faculty member from Notre Dame. The focus is in a whole host of areas, as you see here, from quantum computing to quantum sensing, quantum communications, and then we have a significant emphasis for this region on quantum education and quantum workforce. QSEC, our center, has become a nationally recognized leader in quantum education, and there remains, and in that, it remains a significant opportunity to expand the region's leadership while strengthening the impact of the research actually in our community. And what do we mean when we say significantly impacting the research in the region? We have leveraged a significant amount of research dollars towards these outcomes. I don't know what's going on with my slides here. Let me talk to you a little bit about some of the specific outcomes. On the quantum computing side, we have developed some significant algorithms. We currently, on the sensing side, hold the world record for quantum sensing with our sub-femto Tesla measurement system. We are developing world-class materials and materials characterization in our quantum materials side, and we have a tremendous workforce program, which includes both teacher training, an immersion program, an internship program, and the like. And so those companies who need students in the space, we probably have the most diverse cohort of students in the region. So our region offers hundreds of millions of dollars of research activity, cooperative engagement with multiple Fortune 500 companies. They're involved with what we're doing, incubators and accelerator programs. We have at least 6 of them in the region. Government contracting support, and a unique region with a global view. The country's economic engine is really going to be based, as it relates to quantum, on what happens in this region and what happens in this local economy, and we see ourselves as a core component of it. Look, as I end, as you can tell, Mason and this region have everything you would want and need to tackle this opportunity and challenge. At Mason, we like to say, we know the world will change because we will be the ones that change it. And I bet that every one of you here today feels likewise about this exceptional group of people that you've assembled at this event. Here's to a stimulating QVC 2023. Thank you all. God bless. Let's get on with the conference.
Thank you, President Washington. George Mason University has been a tremendous partner and a leader in the research and development and translation in quantum with us here, not only in this region, but really can be felt nationwide and globally. We're now going to move to our next agenda item, which is Introduction to Quantum and Implications for the Data Center Industry. And we're delighted to have Joe Brose, who is Vice President for Quantum Growth and Market Development at IBM. Please join me in welcoming Joe Brose.
Well, good morning, and I'd like to just echo a couple of things about George Mason. They were just terrific in the early days when we were starting the Quantum Economic Development Consortium. It was clear that George Mason, in fact, was a leader in the field, having developed a number of curricula very early on in the quantum space. So Greg and George Mason and Patrick Vora at George Mason did a terrific job and should be complimented. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about the quantum data center and what we're looking at as we go forward. Let me introduce this. And what we're looking at as we go forward, what would be a quantum data center? How would it perform? How would it work with classical systems? And I'm going to presume that no one here is particularly an expert in quantum, and that I know is a false assumption because there are some true experts here. But I want to level set the economic motivation behind quantum and quantum data centers first. Doing that, data centers power a large number of compute-intensive workloads. Now, these are capability class machines that we're talking about. This is not what I would term your ordinary data server farm that is involved in, say, digital broadcasting, sending cat videos around, or Facebook posts, Instagram posts. These are really capability class data centers, and they work in very diverse areas and a number of verticals in industry. As you glance through this, I think you could probably see almost every field represented here in Northern Virginia in the DMV area. The quantum aspect of this is that quantum computing will extend the capabilities of compute power and therefore touch every one of these areas. And we'll drill down to that in just a moment. Let's first take a look at why quantum. In summary, quantum extends the range of problems that can be solved beyond the classical systems. So you can see in that dark blue set the expansion of those problems that we can currently solve with classical systems. And then there are some call-outs on the right-hand side that really display a couple of these areas in chemistry, materials, machine learning, simulating quantum systems and quantum mechanics, and then, of course, factoring in the cryptography space. Those are just a few representative problem sets that quantum can and will be addressing. So IBM started our quantum cloud revolution in 2016. IBM was the first company in the cloud, and we have followed a roadmap of progression and enhanced development over these last 7, 8 years now, and we have a roadmap that will continue us over into the next decade. We have hit every milestone that we have set forth, and we've hit it on time or slightly ahead of time. You can see that we now, last November, announced the 433-qubit Osprey chip, and we are continuing to build increasingly large systems. Those will be an enormous anchor and factor in the quantum data center. So as we get started on this roadmap now, we're looking at unlocking the full potential of quantum computing along with classical computing in this hybrid architecture. This really means that a quantum computer is not just quantum, it's also classical in its nature. And therefore, it's important to recognize the intricate balance between these two and the collaboration between classical computers and quantum processors. In fact, we call it quantum-centric supercomputing for a reason, and that would really be brought out in this particular diagram, where you can see that the quantum processing unit of the future is going to talk with the CPU, with the GPU, the graphical processing units, and there will be a communication among all of these units in order to provide a quantum-centric supercomputing capability. Now, the first thing that jumps out is that this is very modular, not only between modules, but also within each of these. You can see that there are modules. That requires quantum computation and orchestration among these various units. In May of this year, we announced our program to develop a 100,000 qubit machine. This is an ambitious goal. We believe that we will hit it, and we will do that by 2033. We announced it at the G7 in Hiroshima, and our partners in this $100 million collaboration are the University of Tokyo and the University of Chicago. They provide for us key technologies that we will need as we advance computers to larger and larger scale. Here is that scale in brief. You can see that on the left-hand side is our current utility class computation, that we have now 24 quantum computers in the cloud. We have either announced or already deployed 7 quantum systems of the 100+ qubit range. And as we go forward, we will go to 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000 qubits. As we proceed along this roadmap, there will be several research and development challenges in the interstitial timeframes that need to be basically accomplished. And that would be communication, networking, which I mentioned, also these very long-range couplers over a meter in length, in which we have to couple different quantum computers or quantum computers to the classical systems. So although there's research and development that is going to go on as we progress from one scale to the next, we feel very confident that we will accomplish that research and development, that we will have those tools in place in order to make the deployments that you see here. One of the things is, how do we bring out utility in these machines today? And on this slide, I'll give a quick description of our concept of quantum utility. Some people call it quantum advantage. There's a small company that called it quantum supremacy. We call it quantum utility. It basically proceeds like this. The dark gray curve shows you how resources increase as a function of complexity for problems using a classical computer. As the problem becomes more complex, the amount of resources needed grows exponentially, as shown in that gray curve. In the blue curve, you can see that with a quantum computer that is error-corrected, the increase of resources needed is probably around linear with respect to problem complexity. As a problem would become more complex, a quantum computer would grow linearly, not exponentially. And you can see that there's a crossover point right about here, where it will be more costly and require more resources to do something classically than it would quantumly. So this is the big crossover point where everyone is hoping to drive. But IBM has taken a decidedly different approach. We're in this teal-colored curve here, where we are, through error mitigation, through our hardware and our software capabilities, following a curve that crosses the classical resource earlier, and we're at that point today. In June, on June 15 of this year, we published evidence for quantum utility in Nature magazine. It was the cover article of Nature on the 15th of June. As we progress with each scale, we name our processors after birds to keep them straight. As we go on further, you can see that we basically are performing calculations that are in fact more efficient than the classical counterparts. This is what we showed in the article, and then right after we published, a group of classical tensor network people came out and were able to drop this curve down. So we kind of jockeyed for position as to whether or not a classical system could do this more efficiently than quantum, or quantum more efficiently than classical. The point, however, is that several groups have now produced classical solutions, but they don't agree with each other. And that is, I think, making our point that we are now in an era of utility where a quantum system can reliably produce results and produce them as efficiently or perhaps more efficiently than the classical system. As we now progress along that path of 4 different sizes, we will progress up this curve, and eventually, when we get to the Blue Jay level of 100,000 qubits, we will in fact be in the fault-tolerant, fully error-corrected regime. But the utility of these machines is evidenced today, and we are working hard to produce more use cases where these will be useful to industry and to research. So performing this is no simple trick, and here you can see how a schematic of how we will orchestrate using our middleware the intricate dance that occurs between the quantum machine and the classical machine. That is a real powerful leverage that we have in order to make sure that we're providing this utility and that we can take a given problem and we can adjudicate the portions of that problem that are appropriate to a high-performance computer, but the parts that are appropriate to quantum, and only those parts appropriate to quantum, go to the quantum processing unit. I'll take just a moment to describe an example. Suppose one is calculating a chemical reaction. The bulk electrons of the atoms involved can be well calculated, their energies and the potential that they produce, using density functional theory. That can be done on a classical machine. You don't need to occupy the quantum machine with those calculations because classical DFT does quite well. But for the valence electrons in the upper band of the atoms, where in fact the bonding is occurring, that's where you need the quantum machine, because there are electron-electron correlations that, if approximated, give you inaccurate answers. And what we're trying to do with computational chemistry is find these ground states that are very important to things like corrosion rates, molecular binding, looking at protein folding. So having an accurate description is important, and making sure that we have middleware that will adjudicate the parts of the problem that can be done classically, and focusing and concentrating on the correlated parts of the problem that require quantum computing, and those go to the quantum processor. There are many techniques we're building into our middleware. There is something called serverless. There is circuit knitting, circuit cutting, embedding. There are a number of techniques that we have as standard capabilities in our middleware, and will be, in fact, the bread and butter of a quantum data center in the future. So, future data centers will, in fact, leverage this seamless workflow and what I just described as orchestration. And that will tackle some of these pressing problems that Greg outlined just before me, that really are, in some cases, existential. A quantum-enabled data center would really be able to address a number of problems. As you scan through here, you can see problems in energy, in healthcare, life sciences, in finance, aerospace, new materials, transportation, optimization, and a whole host of industry verticals that are extremely important to us. So as these industries access quantum data centers, they will be able to take advantage of the capabilities that are resident in those data centers using quantum computers. With that, I'm going to stop here. I look forward to addressing any questions. I'll be out here, and I'm at the conference over the next 3 days. So please feel free to get a hold of me, and we can chat a little bit. A number of my IBM colleagues are here. So thank you all very much. Thank you. Sure, okay. Well,
We do have a few minutes if there are questions.
yes, any questions here? Yes, sir.
If the classical computers have different answers, how do you know the quantum one is the correct answer?
So there are a couple of ways. Frankly, we don't. We're in a regime where no one has done the calculation. We're actually in a regime that both the classical and quantum systems have never been before, so it's an unknown territory. I can say this, as a physicist and as a theorist, there's a certain symmetry to the quantum solution that makes sense. Simplicity is often a reductive answer. And I think that when you look at the tensor network forms and their output, it looks to me like the quantum one probably is right from just a simple gut feel. But we're in a domain now where no one has performed these calculations at this scale. Yes, sir.
What role would you estimate that quantum memory will play, particularly in coupling classical digital systems to I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, quantum memory is extremely important. The question around the role of quantum memory in this supercomputing program. So the way we're architecting this today, a quantum memory is not required. Our roadmap does not have that in place. So any memory function is going to be burdened in the classical domain where we have such capability. However, should a quantum memory come available, that would certainly be a game changer. It's not a necessary condition in order to have a quantum supercomputer, but it would certainly provide new architectures and capabilities as we go forward. Another one that's here, equivalent to that, would be transduction. So as we look at conveying quantum states in these modules, as we get to over, say, a meter, you're no longer in the domain where you can do that with microwave photons. One is going to have transduction from microwave to optic and then reverse transduction back. Now that's getting pretty close to a quantum memory, right? And if you had a long enough fiber, clear enough fiber, you could probably just store it in there for a while. Yes, thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So we're going to talk about cryptographically relevant quantum computers. This whole modular idea is interesting to me. I'm just wondering if you have a view on someone using an architecture like that for great cryptography. What might that look like?
Yes, and the question around is the modular architecture really, is it commensurate with the kinds of problem sets that you find in cryptography? Indeed. I think that looking at circuit knitting, where you can take parts of a problem in a quantum circuit of a such and such depth, you can slice it horizontally in that quantum circuit in order to, I think I have a picture of a quantum circuit here, maybe. No, it didn't get in. But you can slice the circuit horizontally, and then parts of that quantum circuit can go to a quantum processor that are independent, and then you can do post-calculation reconstruction. It may, for certain cryptographic applications, excuse me, I have a frog. It might be advantageous to have that modular architecture. Good, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Related to the previous question, in your phase diagram of sorts of cost versus complexity, there was that region where, while we are perhaps beginning to see full error correction machines come into existence, the error mitigation on the system will be perhaps easier to build or more accessible to the public. What are the applications that you think live in that triangle region?
Yes, so great question, thank you. What lives in here? Chemistry, materials, research, I think are some of the first applications. I think there are some finance and financial portfolio calculations as well that will be first movers. We we have taken sort of internal polls on where people think those initial utility applications will be right here. And we do feel, I think, chemistry and materials wins out each time. So looking at chemical reactions, looking at chemical binding, where you need the ground states of both the reactants and products, and that is all telling in your kinetics. And you know, if you recall from college chemistry, there is something called Arrhenius kinetics, where the speed at which a chemical reaction occurs is exponentially driven by the energy difference between reactants and products. And because it's exponential, one needs to calculate the energy difference very accurately. So we think it'll be in some of those domains where we see utility. The paper we published was in the area of magnetization, and is essentially a type of susceptibility curve that is in the June 15 Nature article by IBM. So that was using the Ising model to look at fundamental magnetism, but it's also, the Ising model is used in a whole host of applications. Everything from voter preference to materials development to magnetization, and the Ising model has been applied in a wide array. So even there, we're seeing the potential for utility. We didn't stop, of course, in June, and we're continuing to press on with other models, other Hamiltonians, where we feel utility is really going to be strongly evidenced. Well, great. Thank you all so much. I'll be at the conference. It's great having you. And George and Stu have done a wonderful job here putting this conference together. Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burrows, and a huge thanks to Dr. Burrows and IBM. They've been amazing partners with us both last year and this year with Quantum World Congress, so I hope you will please take the opportunity to speak with him during our networking breaks. And we're hoping to have time for questions after each of our segments of the agenda. If not, we do have, again, plenty of time right after this session for interacting directly with our speakers and panelists. We'd like to move now to a fireside chat. So picture a beautiful, warm fireplace right here, which is appropriate given the wet weather outside. We're going to explore quantum-safe technologies for data center migration, and it's our privilege to have Bruno Huttner, who's Director of Strategic Quantum Initiatives at ID Quantique, and he will be joined by Chris Jansen, who is Product Marketing Manager for Optical Networking at Nokia. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Chris Jansen.
I'm Bruno Huttner. Nice to meet you.
And so I'm with Nokia. Bruno's with ID Quantique. Right? We call them IDQ. I don't know if that's too informal, but okay, let's see what we got here on the slides.
So it's not really a fire chat. We are going to have a presentation by Chris, and we will interact during the presentation. I'm actually filling up for one of my colleagues who unfortunately couldn't make it, so hopefully it's going to work well. We'll see that in a few moments. No.
Okay.
No.
Seems to be different slides than I'd... Sorry, you guys jumped to yours. I guess you were up next, weren't you? Okay. Hold on one second.
I think you're going down, actually. You should go back, no?
Okay, let's go here. The simplest things never are.
So I think we can start with, while you try and do that, we had a great talk about quantum computing, and we see that quantum computing will also need quantum communication. which means that the communication between quantum computers obviously will need quantum. Here we're going to talk about something a little bit different. It's quantum communication for security. We haven't dealt with that yet. And I think it's very important. As you know, we heard great things about the quantum computer doing lots of good applications. One of the applications which might be not so good is, depending on which side you are, is that it will actually break our existing cybersecurity infrastructure. And therefore, in order to make our cybersecurity safe again, and I think we had this wonderful explanation at the beginning, cybersecurity is really, really important, we need to find solutions. Unfortunately, there are different types of solutions for these attacks. Some of them purely classical, it's called post-quantum, and some of them quantum, which is really quantum-safe solutions. So unfortunately, we got different names which look very, very similar, which cover something totally different. You got quantum computer, you got post-quantum cryptography, post-quantum algorithm, which are actually classical algorithms, and you got quantum solution, which will also go a long way towards solving the issues of cybersecurity. And I think in the linked data center today and data centers of the future, all of these technologies will play a role. We'll have classical technologies which will help, and also we hope quantum technologies which will also play a part. With that, I hope, did I fill up well? Okay. Now we can go back to the presentation as Chris will start and will follow that.
Let me add a few details if I could as well. You know, so again, I worked for Nokia, and within Nokia, a very large company, predecessor or rather descendant, if you will, of AT&T and Lucent Technologies. About 5 years ago, he's trying to pull the slides up right now, I would say. You know, we had a small group within Nokia that were quite keen on bringing forward or making people aware of the quantum threat, right? The fact that for all the things Dr. Brose is talking about, which are pretty fascinating, as much as it represents potential for solving good problems, it also represents the threat of people doing harm. All of our customers, right, are doing things much like Dr. Washington talked about earlier with the interconnecting large data centers for critical applications. So our customers were, and still are, only vaguely aware of this threat. Fast forward to about a year ago, and some of our customers in this general geographic area became even more concerned about it. So that sort of lit a fire within not only our company, but I think in the community to establish solutions that evolve over time. So what I'm trying to offer to you is that this isn't new to Nokia even. I will say that it's, in my career, some 30 years, it's been the fastest changing thing that I have seen, right? Because what I mean by this, most of my efforts, say 20 years or so ago, were always about putting more and more capacity out onto a piece of fiber. And while that's still a center of a lot of effort, we now realize that we have to protect that data capacity that's going across these optical links.
Just one thing I can add is I started with ID Quantique about 8 years ago. And when we were talking 8 years ago, maybe half of the presentation was done to convince people of the quantum threat. Today, everybody knows about that, and the people, I mean, companies like Nokia and so on are convinced. Customers start to be convinced. Customers start to ask for solutions and so on. So we have really seen a very sharp upturn about the awareness about the quantum threat. So now we almost don't have to talk about it anymore because everybody knows, and what we have to focus is finding solutions.
Indeed. And in fact, so this is what we're kind of calling the cryptography state of shock, right? Which is to say that for those of us who build or operate networks, there's all this information going across these networks, and it represents something that needs to be protected. So, you know, how do we address this, really? You know, I need to at least touch on real quickly, many of you may know this already, you know, and that's this idea of using public key infrastructure, right, to establish encryption between two endpoints as it is today. And I can tell you myself, too, say 10 years ago, we have an AES-256 protection mechanism, maybe a PKI infrastructure, check, done, next question. So we can't really rely on that anymore. We have to sort of move forward. And you know, this is a nice little picture here of thinking about security, not just insofar as the way I just sort of brushed it over, just lock the door and move on. But there's many different vulnerabilities that can be implemented in different ways. And so, you know, we're sort of moving up this arrow as we move forward here. Now, some of this is about terrifying you a little bit, or our customers a little. What I like about this picture, which actually came from Michele Mosca, is you know, if you accept that we're here at t equals 0 on the far left lower side of this graph, and okay, look, there's no threat right now, but as you move forward, say 5 years, you know, there's a pessimistic view that says maybe it's a 1% chance of RSA 2048 being broken within 24 hours, and maybe it's 6% at the worst. But even that, even though that's shown in green in here, I almost think that should be red, because imagine if you know, national defense or utility infrastructures could be cracked 5 years from now. That time's going to go by like nothing. So,
and we've seen that maybe now we know that by 2033 IBM will have a 100,000 qubit system. And that's, I mean, I don't know, on our side, it's a little bit scary, maybe.
No doubt. Does 10 years, you mean, initially you might think, oh, it's 10 years, that's a long time. But think about 2013, that was 10 years ago already, right? So the threat is very real, right? And my question to Dr. Joe was just simply about this idea of what we know, you know, internally, within Nokia, we say CRQC, and a lot of people know what that means now, we think. But how is that really built? That I don't know. But what we're trying to say to people is that this threat is real. There's this notion that people could be actually harvesting data right now based on PKI and just storing that. A bad state actor could be doing that, waiting for a cryptographically relevant quantum computer to come forward.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, there is no quantum computer, but the threat is already here.
Yeah.
And the threat to your network, and the threat to your data, if today you transmit data which you would like to keep secret, and of course we all have that as companies. I mean, IP, for example, kind of maybe personal data which you don't want people to know, banking data and so on. So even though there is no quantum computer cryptographically relevant, there is a quantum computer. I will be killed by IBM if I don't say so. So even though there is no cryptographically relevant quantum computer, the threat is here.
So let's talk about what we mean by a quantum safe network. And you know, okay, we can talk all morning about different architectures. We just want to give you a little snapshot. But we like to think of a quantum safe network as having 3 essential components. We think about encryption keys, we think about locks that those keys open or close, but there's also this notion of distribution, right? How do you get the keys to each end? And this is what builds out these ideas of either a pre-shared key or PKI, public key infrastructure.
I mean, I like this picture, and I just want to add a little bit here. Keys are very important in cryptography. It's really the fuel of everything. You need keys in order to do everything. Lock, I think, as you said here, is okay. We can still manage to encrypt and decrypt. We use AES. We believe that's safe. Really, the idea is how do we make these keys and how do we transmit them? And I wanted to add one point about the generation of keys. And in order to generate good keys, you need randomness. We all know that. You need entropy. And that's one of the things which I think we solve also, is in order to get good entropy, you can use quantum. And that's, again, something very nice, is that, you know, quantum is a threat for us, but it's also a solution. By using quantum, you can improve the generation of your keys, and these keys can be used everywhere. For example, with post-quantum crypto, with quantum key distribution, and so on. So there are several solutions which we can use based on better keys.
Yeah, very good. So this picture is an interesting model, I think. And I'm not going to describe every aspect of this, but over on the right-hand side there, you see a recreation of the OSI stack, and that's probably familiar to many of you in the networking realm. And, you know, we think, or I do, you know, that very bottom layer there, right? That's the optical network that might interconnect those data centers that were mentioned earlier. And so, you know, in my past, I've largely spent most of my attention thinking about that lower layer. Well, many of you know that there's a lot more to that, especially up up towards the very top layer. But the point here fundamentally is that a quantum-safe network needs to really address all of them. It's not just one, lock. It's not just one mechanism or piece of software. So think about the way keys are generated, classically by a classic physics-based random number generation, or more interestingly, more recently, and this is what IDQ do, is using quantum physics to create a key. And then also how they're distributed, right? And then the third piece in the kind of pink squares up there are mathematical algorithms, and these are the post-quantum ciphers that you see under development right now.
And you need all of them. I mean, we are talking today about data centers. Data centers are huge farms where you got a lot of data going from one to the other. And that's where an attacker would probably put all his attacks, is to try and get this. For this, you need some specific good security. Now, if you have, let's say, less important links between a data center and a person, you can use a different solution. For example, post-quantum crypto would be probably much better there. And it will be a mixture. I mean, the network of the future will have to deal with many different solutions. As Chris said, unfortunately today, we cannot just say we put PKI, we put RSA, and we're done. We will have to look at that in much more detail and say, okay, this is where I have a problem. This is what the kind of solution I can use. Here, the problem is slightly different. Maybe I can use another solution. And as we saw for the quantum computer, it will not work on its own. The same here with a classical network. It will have security solution which will come from both quantum, non-quantum, and it will be a mixture which hopefully will bring us very good security.
Indeed. At one point, I just want to stress a little bit here, way over on the far right there, the idea of engineered or dynamic connections, because this can easily be missed. You might say, well, why not build a quantum key distribution architecture and it solves everything top to bottom? But that would be really difficult. I don't have my phone with me. Think about that top layer. Can I get a quantum key to my phone to establish a session key between here and my bank? So that would be really tricky.
Maybe let me add something, because we're in Washington, D.C. here. And as you probably, most of you know, the world quantum key distribution in the US is taboo somehow, because people believe that it's not total security. And I think we can agree on that it doesn't provide the whole system. What the US is doing is trying to go to the next step, is to provide total security by enabling a total quantum network where keys can be distributed totally securely from end to end. We cannot do that today with QKD without some extra assumptions. Okay? What we believe with QKD is that you need to start with something small and then expand it and probably at some stage reach the level of a quantum network. For that, we need to distribute entanglement, have quantum memory, so this will be the future. But I think we all agree that at some stage there will be some quantum distribution of entanglement, keys, and so on, which will improve the security of the whole network. And there are different paths to do that. In the rest of the world, people are using QKD because they believe it's a good step. Today in the US, let's say, this kind of solution is not so much followed. But at some stage, all the solutions will converge to give a good security. That's what we hope anyway.
Yeah, very, very good. I think that's a good segue, which is to say, what do you do now? What do we tell, a large banking institution or the U.S. government and all of its entities? How do you secure things right now? And the answer isn't as, I like to say, it's not just one thing you buy. It's not just one appliance or piece of software. So we've established this set of blueprints, we like to call them, that start, with the very most basic thing perhaps, which would be a purely manual key. And so it's the strongest, perhaps, form of a pre-shared key. You physically go to each side of the link, and the key is nowhere in the network, right? So that's what we tentatively call Blueprint 1. The second one is to do that through an out-of-band connection. We can talk about specifics of this later if you like, but there's a central appliance that uses a classic physics-based number generator and distributes that key to both ends. It's a form of pre-shared keys, and this would really apply to those engineered connections. And we find application for this indeed in the U.S. government as an example. But for a number of reasons, I think too, Bruno, add to this if you like, But to me, the idea of, and the reason really for adding QKD, quantum key distribution, is I think of two things. One, absolute randomness, right, in that random number generator. And then the second thing is also this idea of being able to tell if someone's fiddling with the network, the idea of seeing if someone's breaking in there.
That's interesting. Actually, one of the European big operator, British Telecom, is trying to use QKD to protect the network. So you can use this for different applications. You can say, okay, I want to generate keys and give it to my customers, and that's really what you're trying to do, is to provide your customers with a total solution, including this. And you can also use the technology to protect your own network. So you're not going to sell keys, you're going to sell protection. You're going to tell your customers that my network is protected by that, and therefore the network is more resilient somehow. Right. I think it's still work in progress, as most of what we're doing here. There is no final solution so far, but all of that can participate in a better solution at the end.
Indeed. And then just one last point to add to that, because many times we will hear people say, well, there's limitations on fiber distances one can cover. Anyway, so then there's this idea of using a satellite to satellite links to distribute the keys, and that's what we just call a SATCOM QKD hybrid blueprint. So
that can look a bit far-fetched, but as you probably know, in China they have done that already. Europe is very strong in trying to do QKD from space as well. These people, I mean, okay, there must be something there, and I think if you want to generate and distribute keys from space, it will be for very, very important keys. I mean, the cost will probably be rather high, but I think we make some calculation. It's not, a key will cost a few dollars, not more than that, because once you have the infrastructure, you can start selling this and so on. And some startups are even trying to do that as well with satellites. So that will be, let's say, an added component to the whole structure. Right. You will have your local systems, maybe connecting data centers locally, because that's really where you want to have high security. And then you can connect these big hubs with satellites. But again, that's work in progress. We see that.
And so I think you get the idea. I think we titled this talk "Vision to Future" or something like that. And what we were trying to say is that this whole notion, for us anyway, in Nokia started as we have encryption. Is that good enough forever? Well, there's this quantum thing emerging, and here we are today, trying to evolve with this as time goes on. So the point of this picture is to say that So Nokia, we make these systems that enable connectivity at different places, and working with IDQ, we need people like this, industry partners that help us form a more evolving solution. It's strong expertise. Yeah.
And I think it's important to realize that today you cannot just provide optical solution, optical networks. Security used to be something you added afterward, Our first optical networks had no security. People believed that it was okay somehow. And now we change completely. Security is part of the network. And we see that with Nokia, who is really trying to put security, maybe not at the top, but at least at a significant level, so that when you provide a network, you also provide the security of the network. I think that's very important.
It's a shifting mindset. Like I said, at one time it was just a check mark somewhere, and we didn't talk about it much, And now it's garnered a lot of attention. So I want to I'd like you all. I know people here are coming from different backgrounds, but think of it this way: this picture and these points here are items we're speaking to our customers with and encouraging them to think about how their networks are built, recognize where their threats might be, and make a plan, rather than waiting 5 years to, oh my God, there's someone's been hacked, someone's been attacked, or waiting 10 years, worse yet, or even saying, well, PQC is evolving, so we'll protect at that level, and then just continue to use PKI-based layer 1, layer 2 structures, and that's fine. We want you to think now, to plan ahead, and close those gaps.
Yeah, I think that's about the same thing. I wanted to add one thing about post-quantum cryptography with respect to quantum. systems, is post-quantum cryptography has a kind of, date where it could be broken. I mean, if we look at computational cryptography, at some stage, when you use a given system, the security goes down because the power of the computers goes up, even without the quantum computer, just classically. So that quantum can give you a level of assurance for a long, long time. And I think when you think about the most important links in your system, you need to be aware of that if you have very high value information which you want to keep safe for a long, long time, using only a post-quantum system today might be a little bit dangerous. Again, the idea is to mix things and make sure you have different solutions. I like to see that as an onion somehow. You got different layers, and if one layer is attacked, the other one below is still okay. So you need really to have security in depth by having this kind of onion structure. If one layer falls, you still have something below it to take care of part of it.
A good point that I didn't really mention, and I mentioned classic keys and that sort of symmetric distribution architecture. So that's part of the strength of that architecture is we can rely on QKD for this absolute randomness, but then as a backup to that, if something goes wrong with that network, things do go wrong, like having your slides loaded on the laptop, things happen. So you have that backup of the classic system as well.
Yeah, I liked your slide with the different solutions, basically.
Yeah.
And again, it's not one or the other, but it really you choose, and the customer will choose at some stage. Also.
Right. Absolutely.
Let the customer decide.
And we have customers in the US that have different views on how this evolves from those in Europe, say. So, and I think that's it. I mean, we could take some questions from you folks. We're both around the next few days. You'll see that I think we have a booth.
I'm not supposed to advertise, but if you come and see us, we have a booth and you can see a live QKD system, so at least you can see for yourself how it works.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for being flexible
Yeah, no,
and your patience on that.
Okay, Lincoln.
You take yours. Bruno and Chris, thank you so much. That was fascinating, and we very much appreciate the expo floor that I think Bruno mentioned. Many of you have seen just outside here will be fully set up tomorrow. I think many of them might be set up today. So as we have networking, please do take advantage of that. We're now going to move to building a quantum-safe future from vision to implementation. And we're privileged to have Inbar Badian from Microsoft Security. She is with the Chief Technology Officer at Microsoft Security, and she will be speaking to us again about building a quantum-safe future from vision to implementation.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. Let's go to the first slide.
They put them all together.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, I'm pleased to be here, and it's a privilege to be after the great session of my colleagues from IDQ and Nokia talking about quantum safe. So I think that some of the content will be very similar, but I will add some more blocks on top of it. So my name is Inbar. I'm part of the CTO office of Microsoft Security, and I'm leading the quantum safe program across Microsoft. We'll discuss it in a minute. And today I'm going to talk a bit about Microsoft's approach to quantum safe and the efforts that we're taking globally to achieve a quantum safe future. Okay. So when it comes to quantum safe, we find ourselves in Microsoft in a very unique position from both the experience and the knowledge that we gained and basically the commitment, the strong commitment that we have to our customers and partners to remain secure. And this is why this topic is a top priority to Microsoft. First of all, we are creators of the technology. We've been engineering a super quantum computer for almost 2 decades. We have multiple applications coming from the Azure Quantum team, and we've been also experimenting and developing PQC algorithms since 2014. So we deeply understand the technology, we deeply understand the risks, but also how to overcome those risks. We are system managers running an organization with more than 200,000 people over 120 geographies, leading scaled and complex IT, which requires us to have a thoughtful plan to understand how to secure every infrastructure in our organization. We are a service provider, of course, providing hyperscale cloud with Azure, Microsoft 365, and other products, and of course, a security provider with comprehensive coverage across multiple platforms and systems. And with that in mind, we understand the scale, the complexity, and what's needed to be done to achieve quantum safe future. And there's a lot of hype around timelines, around when we will have this risk, as we just discussed in the previous lecture. And the current generation of quantum computers is incapable of breaking today's encryption, so the threat is not immediate. And we still have time, but not enough time. And as we can see here in the graph, a quantum computer capable of breaking today's encryption is not a real problem today, and basically quantum computers capable of solving any real-world problem will require at least 1 million qubits. As we will see in a minute how we're using concrete tools by Microsoft to achieve those numbers. And specifically for encryption, we can see here that it will require at least 2 million qubits for ECC and even 10 million qubits for RSA. So quantum computers that we have today, the scale, the power that we have today is not enough to break encryption, and basically they are being used today mostly for academic purposes. And as you can see here, while there's still a theoretical work around timelines, as we just said, we developed a concrete tool in Microsoft, the Azure Resource Estimator, that allows us to model a future-scale quantum computer and understand the real impact of different quantum algorithms on different use cases. Specifically, we can see here the model of Shor's and Grover's on encryption algorithms. And as you can see here from the plot, we get the understanding that for encryption algorithms, specifically the impact of Shor's on asymmetric encryption will be real in 10 to 15 years, as we just discussed in our lecture before. And it will require, as I mentioned earlier, 2 million qubits, or at least 2 million qubits for ECC, and at least 10 million qubits for RSA, but we understand that it will become real in 10 to 15 years. So we need to start thinking about this now. But on the other hand, as we can see here from the red plot, we have the understanding that symmetric ciphers and hashes are particularly quantum safe today, and we don't even need to enlarge or to double the size of the key, because basically we don't have this potential risk to AES by Grover in a feasible amount of time, as we can see here. So I encourage you to use the Azure Resource Estimator. It's available today through the Azure Quantum website, and to test and see it yourself. And even though the threat is not immediate, we still need to think about the process to achieve quantum safety as soon as possible. We just discussed about the fact that we already have secrets. We already have critical information, sensitive information that can be viable for more than 10 or 20 years from today. These data can be at risk today. So we need to think about this data that can be recorded today by adversaries and be decrypted later in the future when we will have cryptographically relevant quantum computers available. Also, if we think about the scale of this process, to achieve quantum safety and PQC compliance across multiple infrastructures, across all our ecosystem, supply chain, everything, it will be a multi-year process, an iterative process that we need to think carefully about our steps, about the plan that we're building, to make sure that we're prepared for that when time comes. This is the reason why we in Microsoft recommend every organization to start thinking about the plan, even if not execution, but the plan on how to execute it in the future already today and as soon as possible. And this is why we took a comprehensive approach in Microsoft to quantum safe, to PQC, and we are working globally with a network of experts and stakeholders to set goals. We set cross-company goals with all the divisions across Microsoft, with concrete plan on how we're going to do every step to achieve security across our infrastructures. And as part of that, we understood that we need to establish accountability in the most senior levels in our organization. And for that reason, we have Charlie Bell, EVP of Microsoft Security, as the exact sponsor of this effort. We established the Microsoft Quantum Safe program to centralize all the different efforts to create focus from both the technical and the business side to make sure that we not just focus on the technical transition of Microsoft, but we also help our customers, partners, ecosystems to achieve quantum safety, to build this plan, to provide guidance, and of course, we understand that it's going to be a collaborative effort. So how we work with all the different stakeholders globally to achieve that together. For the technical effort inside Microsoft to achieve PQC compliance, to understand where we are going to implement the algorithm, when, how, we define some key principles. It's not just for the PQC adoption, but also for the standardization process that we are heavily involved in. From setting goals, as we said, for the program as a whole, but also for the PQC transition, establish accountability and understand exactly which team responsible for each part. We said that we have those keys. So in Microsoft, for example, we have multiple teams working on different keys, different areas. So how we create a cross-company alignment between this work and leverage this effort for crypto management as a whole. How we integrate those PQC standards when time comes, when the specs are ready. For that, we basically understood that we need to assess every piece of our organization, organizational aspects and non-organizational aspects, understand exactly where we are going to implement PQC algorithms, prioritizing, first of all, symmetric encryption. As we said before, we see symmetric encryption as particularly quantum safe today. So wherever we can use symmetric encryption, we prefer to do this. On top of that, of course, top priority is the adoption of PQC algorithms, but we need to understand exactly what the data that we have, the type of data that we're using, and for how long it's going to be valuable, and to assess exactly geographic considerations, because we will not be able to do it all at once. So to understand the prioritization process. On top of that, as we discussed in the previous lecture, to understand how we also prioritize not just the adoption of PQC in a crypto agility mode, but also how we adopt those technologies in a hybrid way. So we can also adopt other technologies, both from the quantum side and other security aspects and models, to make sure that we provide end-to-end security, but also in scale. It's super important to make sure that we don't just plug and play those solutions, but we understand exactly how to do that and the scalability. Another thing that I want to add on top of that is the inventory process that organizations should start as soon as possible. We in Microsoft are using the tool CodeQL, which is a next generation program code analysis tool, which allows us to identify the crypto usage across the application layer, to identify also legacy crypto that is being used, and understand what's the remediation steps that are needed to be done. And this tool, we are already working with several design partners today to expand it, and it will be available soon through GitHub as a general available tool. Not only that, we don't focus only on our internal transition and what should be done to protect the organization, but we also invest heavily in innovation, in emerging technologies, and understanding what we should do globally together with the effort that we're doing inside Microsoft to provide this comprehensive security externally. And we have, as I mentioned at the beginning, a strong commitment to our customers, partners, and the ecosystem as a whole to provide security solutions. And that's why we understand that we need to test every combination of technologies that is possible. As part of that, of course, we have high priority to protecting our data centers. And in fact, we've been investing in an early and very successful POC a few years ago, testing the usage of PQC algorithms to protect VPN tunnels between data centers from the Microsoft Research Data Center in Redmond to Scotland, leveraging the Project Nightingale underwater data centers. And we will not be able to achieve quantum safety globally if we will not work together with the ecosystem, with partners, with the standards setting bodies, with academia and industry partners. And for that reason, we invest heavily in those collaborations, and we're participating in multiple organizations and multiple working groups to understand together what we should do to achieve quantum safety globally. The process that NIST is leading, the standardization process of PQC, in Microsoft is a top of mind. We identify this process as a key step to achieve PQC compliance and basically the first step to achieve quantum safety. And we are part in the NIST NCCOE migration to PQC project, leading several work streams that allow us to identify not just the tools that can be used and should be used eventually for the identification of cryptography, but also to test the PQC algorithms and to implement the algorithms in different way, so when the specs are ready, we will be able to adopt them. And of course, to understand together which other combinations of cipher we should use, how we advance crypto agility, how we advance hybrid solutions of PQC and other quantum technology and security technologies to achieve full security across platforms and systems. We also co-authored FraudAchem, which is a key exchange scheme, and it was submitted to ISO. It's the first international standard for PQC, for key exchange. We co-authored it with multiple industry partners. We just submitted SkiSign, which is a signature scheme that we co-authored together with multiple industry partners as well, including IBM, and it was submitted to NIST's latest call to additional signature schemes. And I'm happy to share that lastly, just recently, we joined the PQC coalition, the Post-Quantum Cryptography Coalition by MITRE as founding members. And this coalition, it will be announced today, and it will help us to drive progress through a broader adoption of the public standardization of PQC and the NIST recommendations. And just to finish up, I see it, and we at Microsoft see the opportunity for quantum and quantum safe as something that is going to revolutionize the future, to build the building block for the innovative future that we're building. And this is our commitment at Microsoft, not just to foster innovation, but also to make sure that we keep our customers, partners, and ecosystem secure during this process. We have this strong commitment, and we're also accountable to every product, every service that we're building, that we're collaborating on, and we will follow this commitment, also in the quantum era. And on behalf of the entire Microsoft team, the Azure Quantum team that is here today, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I encourage you to explore quantum-safe technologies, to collaborate with us in Microsoft, and I'm looking forward to the continuous effort moving forward to achieve quantum safety globally, and hope to see you in the next day of QWC here with the Azure Quantum team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Inbar, and special thanks to Microsoft, who has been a tremendous partner with us for Quantum World Congress. And it truly is a Quantum World Congress. Inbar came from Israel. I know many that are here came from outside the US, so we express our deep appreciation for you being with us. We will have several both business and diplomatic delegations and events at various embassies in conjunction with QWC. Washington, D.C. is, of course, home to the U.S. government, and so now we are pleased to hear a U.S. government perspective, and it is a terrific segue from Inbar's presentation about NIST, which we'll be hearing from shortly. But first, we're going to be talking about perspective on security in the age of quantum computers, again, a U.S. government perspective, and we are delighted to have Dylan Pressman, who is Director of Budget and Assessment in the White House Office of the National Cyber Director. Dylan will be joined by Nicholas Polk, who is Senior Advisor to the Federal CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, also with the White House Office of the National Cyber Director, and Christian Lowry, who is a Section Chief in the National Risk Management Center at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, otherwise known as CISA. Please join me in welcoming for our panel discussion.
Man, the bright lights are beautiful. I want to start by thanking Inbar from Microsoft. That was a fantastic presentation. She basically covered everything we were intending to cover, so I think we could just quit. She's obviously going to be far more eloquent than we're going to be. So my name's Dylan Pressman. As was mentioned, I'm with the White House Office of the National Cyber Director. And Nick and Christian will introduce themselves when they come. And we're going to talk about where the government stands in terms of the transition to post-quantum cryptography or quantum-resistant cryptography. I'm going to assume this is a highly educated, informed audience. I'm not going to really cover sort of some of the basic stuff, or I'll at least really skim over that. Obviously, before I start talking about the threats involved in quantum-resistant cryptography, I want to start by saying that isn't what quantum computing is about, right? Quantum computing is an amazing opportunity. It's going to be absolutely transformational when we have sufficiently mature quantum computers. It's going to be transformational for our economy, for our society. So that's the starting point of quantum technologies. They are a really good thing. However, there is this dark side, and we need to address that issue early on so that we don't fall prey to sort of rushing into the wonders of quantum without protecting from the closest alligator to the boat, as they sometimes say. So what are those risks? And Inbar did touch on this. I'm just going to sort of level set this. What are the risks? Obviously, we've known since 1994, since Peter Shor developed his algorithm, that a sufficiently mature quantum computer will be capable of cracking all known forms of encryption that are currently used in our unclassified systems or asymmetric encryption systems. RSA, as was mentioned, elliptical curve, Diffie-Hellman, those are going to be vulnerable to a sufficiently mature quantum computer. And we think that, nobody knows for sure, but we think, given the pace of technology, we're talking about 10, 20, maybe 30 years until there is a sufficiently mature quantum computer able to implement Shor's algorithm. We saw that up on the graph that Inbar presented earlier. And so with that threat, that existential threat to encryption for all know all unclassified systems, all the systems we use in our day-to-day lives. So when we send an email, when we access our bank, when we access our medical records. So with that threat, it sort of breaks down along two lines. One is, I'm sorry, let me start again. So there are basically two reasons why we need to be addressing this issue now. So one is it takes a really long time for us to get our act together. And us, I mean all of us. Yeah, it takes a long time to transition something as complex as cryptographic modules in big systems and networks. The federal government's not very good at moving at speed. It will take us a significant amount of time to transition. And then you think about sort of critical infrastructure and operational technologies and the amount of time it takes as critical infrastructure owners and operators refresh their technology. So there is that time frame. And there's another time frame issue that needs to be addressed or needs to be recognized. And that is that we know that our adversaries are currently capturing huge troves of encrypted data and storing them for the date when they will have a sufficiently mature quantum computer. So sometimes called harvest now, decrypt later. So these harvest now, decrypt later attacks make us we need to examine the kind of data, the shelf life of data. So that is, we know that classified information usually needs to be protected for 25 to 50 years. We know that medical data, probably want to keep that safe for the lifetime of the individual. Maybe the name of an informant or the name of government agents in other countries, we probably want to keep those safe for the lifetime of that individual. Intellectual property. Not all intellectual property has a long data life, but certainly some of it does. And we know what our adversaries are looking for in the arena. So those are sort of the reasons why now is the time to start. If we need to protect the data at the beginning of its lifespan, we're probably there right now. So I want to just talk about sort of where the government's been, what are the steps the government has been taking, and then I'll talk a little bit about who are the government actors before I hand off to Nick. So as Imbar mentioned, NIST has been at this quite a while. The National Institute for Standards and Technology has been at the quest to develop quantum-resistant algorithm for quite a while. They launched the search for quantum-resistant algorithms with the general community back in 2016. And then in 2018, Congress passed a piece of legislation, the National Quantum Initiative Act, that really kicked off the federal government's efforts to be a leader in quantum technologies. That's led by an organization called the Office of Science and Technology Policies. There was another important development in 2018, and that was an executive order pushed out by the president, executive order called 14028 on cybersecurity. And the importance of what's sometimes called the Zero Trust or cybersecurity executive order is that it really puts a focus on encryption. Encrypting data at rest and encrypting data in transit. And then 2022 becomes a really big year. 2022, the president releases something called National Security Memorandum 10 and National Security Memorandum 8. And both of them basically have sort of two sides. And they say quantum technology is great. It's going to be a really amazing development for our society. However, as I started off, there is this threat vector that we need to be addressing early. And it requires the federal government to transition to post-quantum cryptography or quantum-resistant cryptography, starting with the highest priority systems by the year 2035. Now, 2035 sounds a long way away, but as I mentioned, we're not very good at moving at speed across vast networks and systems. So 2035 is a realistic time frame to do that. And then sort of the Office of Management Budget, Nick is with the Office of Management Budget, he'll talk about this a little bit in a moment. They followed up NSM 10 with guidance, sometimes known as M2302, which told departments and agencies exactly what they need to do. And the first two steps OMB designated was one, know your stuff. That is, inventory your cryptographic modules, and 2, know how much what resources are required. So do cost estimates for the transition to post-quantum cryptography. And then at the end of 22, Congress codified those policies into law in something called the Quantum Computing Cybersecurity Preparedness Act, codifying those policy into law. So before I hand over to Nick to talk some more some of the practical side of this, I just want to touch on the different agencies that are involved. You've already heard about NIST. NIST are a critical player, the National Institute for for Standards and Technology. They're really leading the way in developing the quantum resistant cryptographic algorithms. And they're also leading the way with engagement with industry and the vendors community. I also mentioned the Office of Science and Technology policy. They're leading this sort of quantum is great side of the discussion. They're leading how does the US maintain its leadership in this arena? I'm with the Office of National Cyber Director at the White House. Obviously, our interest, along with OMB and our partners, is really on how do we get the government to move? Just check my notes. Oh, NSA, National Security Administration, are also known as the national manager of our national security systems, and they have responsibility for transitioning all classified networks in the federal government and all our national security systems. And then the last agency I just want to touch on is CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Christian will talk a little bit more about their role, but they have a critical role. They are the federal government's operational arm when it comes to cybersecurity, our subject matter experts when it comes to risk management. And so they are a leader in the federal arena in terms of operationalizing policy. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Nick. Nick has his own.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. So as Dylan said, my name is Nick Polk. I'm from the Office of Management and Budget, and I'm here to help. Every government employee probably chuckled nervously when I said that. So a little bit about OMB. This is why it's always great to do these things, because we're a little bit of a sleeper office in the White House. So we play a dual role, which is actually in our name. It sounds like office tables and chairs, but management and budget. So I'm on the management side. We're responsible for orchestrating the president's policy among the federal agencies. So we have several different divisions. I'm in the Office of Federal Chief Information Officer, which does cyber and IT policy. We also have folks that do procurement policy, personnel policy, and information and regulatory affairs. So that's the management side. We also work closely with the budget side, which every year formulates the president's annual budget. And we're very excited that this year is the first year that we have a specific line item in the cyber exhibit of that budget for each agency for post-quantum migration. So we are going to be closely working with the budget side as we move through this budget process. I want to be very clear, this is the FY25 budget process, FY24 budget, who knows what's going to happen. It's going to be a fun week, y'all. So I'm going to make a couple of jokes just because, it makes OMB and PQC very interesting when I do so. And I'm going to talk a little about what we've been doing to migrate the US government towards post-quantum cryptography. So as Dylan said, and this is why I love doing these things, because the federal government, IT, and cyberspace can be a very weird, complex space where we don't even understand it. I have a slide that explains this all, and I've used it on several different senior leaders, all of whom have asked me never to brief them again. So I'm just going to go through kind of how we divide up federal and IT within the US government. It is a mismatch of different statute and executive orders. And unfortunately, it has become a little bit complex, but we have more or less kind of come to a handshake agreement with everyone how we do it. So broadly, the US government is divided into two types of systems: national security systems and non-national security systems. So as Dylan said, national security systems, as defined by statute, are systems that have a direct military or intelligence objective, or are authorized to process classified information. Non-national security systems are everything else. And so for national security systems, that falls under the NSA's Office of the National Manager. for national security systems, and they will govern those systems under their authorities, which you can read about in National Security Memorandum 8. And then for non-national security systems, that is under our office. And you might be asking, what about the DoD systems that fall in between? Good question. We're trying to figure that out, but those are mostly governed by the DoD Chief Information Officer, and we work closely with them and the intelligence community to make sure we have full coverage. And for the most part, all the policies that we design as a group are then amalgamated by each agency and put forward in their own agency policies for each of their systems. So this entire framework is what we are using for our migration to post-quantum cryptography. So OMB released M2302, as Dylan said, which was our requirement under National Security Memorandum 10. I know, fun, a whole bunch of numbers. This was the direction for agencies to start the inventory of cryptographic systems for non-national security systems. NSA very shortly followed up with their direction for national security systems, and the DoD CIO and ICCIO all issued specific instructions for their AOR as well. So this is all a way of saying that we have all very closely aligned our efforts to make sure that we aren't throwing industry for a loop and having DoD require this widget and us require that widget. And so you'll see that they're very similar. There are going to be some differences. Namely, you'll see that a lot of the national security system side, they focus a lot more on symmetric cryptography. For the non-national security system side, we have decided to focus on asymmetric cryptography. We think that our symmetric cryptography is pretty well defended against a even sufficiently advanced actor in the next 10 to 15 years. So asymmetric cryptography. And then the biggest difference you'll see, and this is for the civilian side, so non-NSS, is that we have decided to really focus our efforts on not all of our systems, but two specific classes of systems. So the first one is your high-impact systems. These are just, if you've heard of FIPS 199, FISMA high systems, so systems where the confidentiality, integrity, or availability has been rated by the agency to be high. These are actually not many systems within the different agencies. This is a very high bar to get to FISMA high. If you read the categorization guidance, which I have, but I would not recommend that anybody do in case you absolutely need to. It's actually a very good document. It's very straightforward. But essentially it says that in order for something to be FISMA high, if that system is compromised, it would have to pose an immediate threat to human life or safety, or have some very catastrophic economic effects. So those are exactly the systems that you can think of. The other side of that are high-value assets. And so high-value assets are a different categorization, and those are assets, not systems. They can actually span multiple systems. I apologize for that. It's really annoying to try to map that all out. They actually span multiple systems, but these are essentially where the agency has said, this segment of my network is critical to the proper functioning of my agency, or we believe that there is direct intelligence saying that this is being targeted, or both. So little com A, little com B, somewhere in between that Venn diagram. These are not continuity systems, although they can be. Again, apologize for that. So each agency will have their list. So this is all just a way of saying that we have decided to prioritize. We do not want to do a sudden migration for all of our systems. And this is for a very simple reason. So the number of endpoints across DoD and the civilian side is actually almost equally spread. So give or take about 12 million, 6 million on the DoD side, 6 million on the civilian side. Does that include IoT? TBD. But about even. And for us, we don't want to require agencies to focus on things where we just don't see an immediate threat. And that is, the systems that are FISMA low, right? So if you imagine your conference room scheduling system at an agency, for us, that's just not the priority right now. And we're going to be very open and transparent about that. We strongly believe that we need to focus our efforts and our resources and limited resources in the place where they get the most impact, which is those two systems. So that's our prioritization. And then the second part, again, is asymmetric. And so I want to go a little bit into how we're looking at the actual inventory and how we're looking at the resourcing. Because this is really where, ultimately it's going to come down to industry and our partners throughout the, different sectors as well as abroad to ensure that we can do this migration successfully. So, the first thing that we're looking at in this inventory is, again, making sure you have an inventory. That's kind of our baseline. And so CIS has put out some great graphics which explain, kind of the steps and, I strongly recommend everyone look at those because those actually are very well written, unlike some of our, very complex policy and legislation, which has grown over the years. But we have said do that inventory as a baseline. Now, we've heard a lot of agencies go after some of these automated inventory tools, which we think are great. It is, just from a broader lens of the fact that we need good cryptography as part of our transition to zero trust, which we lay out in M2209, we think it's great that agencies are looking at these automated inventory tools because, while every algorithm they pop up is probably going to be, non-PQC, right, because we haven't released NIST standards, we think it's very good to identify those algorithms that are already deprecated by NIST and are insecure, because that's kind of an important step. If an algorithm can be broken today by a classical computer, it's time to replace the algorithm, and it's good that we can identify those. We've seen in the private sector that automated cryptographic inventory software has been the norm for a while, so we're excited that the government is embarking on this path. However, there are two really important prerequisites for this software. First, you need to have a full inventory of your network and all of your systems. So we've required this in the government since like mid-1991. It is an ongoing process. Every day an agency will stand up systems, deprecate systems. They will change the system boundary. It's a constant thing. But it's important that you know where those are, because if you get an algorithm that pops up on this inventory software, you don't know where it is or who owns that system, then it's just a fun little data point that you'll never find out. And again, when you're an agency like HHS, which has multiple different operating divisions, thousands of different systems, millions of endpoints, if you're sitting in the central, SOC and you see something pop up in Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services, that could be anywhere in the country. And so knowing where to reach, where to get that is very important for us. And so that's why we're saying, this automated inventory software is great, but there are prerequisites, which is having an inventory of your systems, and frankly, doing that manual inventory as well, so you can get a baseline of how many cryptographic algorithms exist across your network. Because again, the automated software might, get, let's say 1 million algorithms, and you might have 10 million. Well, you don't know what the denominator is until you do that. And it's going to be an ongoing process for two reasons. So first, we require that agencies only look at algorithms that are being actively used. Now, often these are going to be turned off and on, right? Sometimes, systems are spun up for specific purposes. For example, FEMA will spin up systems in the event of a natural disaster and spin them down when that's over. It's, definitely best practice. We don't like systems sitting out there that nobody uses that become a great landing place for an advanced persistent threat actor. So some of them are going to spin up, and you're going to have to inventory those when it happens. And there are going to be some algorithms that are, used when you decide to connect a database somewhere else, and you have to, activate that algorithm. So that's our kind of, whole idea for establishing that baseline, doing that inventory, understanding what the denominator is, and then moving forward to the automated cryptographic inventory software. And I'm going to follow that with just one last note, which is on the budget, because, Office Management and Budget, and we love the budget. Especially the budget side. But we also love the budget and the management side. And this job has really taught me a lot about how the budget works and how it's very important to think about the budget when agencies are planning and when vendors are talking to agencies about that planning and helping them work through some of their different procurements over the next year. So, as I said, this is the first budget where we're going to have a specific line item for cryptographic inventory and post-quantum cryptography migration. Super exciting. But there are two things to go with that. First, NIST has not released their standards. So agencies have already submitted their budget request. So, NIST will release their standards probably early next year. It says in NSM 10. It's going to take a second for them to go through the entire process. It's going to take another second for the commercial sector to pick them up. So migration of those standards is not going to be represented in this budget, because we have said very specifically agencies must wait for those standards, because we don't want agencies to break their network implementing something that has not been standardized across all different partners, right? We do not want a local health organization to be told by CMS, hey, sorry, we actually just switched over to post-quantum cryptography. We know it's not standardized, but we can't communicate with your systems anymore. So not to say they've done that, that's just an example. So that's not going to be represented. What is going to be represented in this budget year is going to be the cost for actually performing that inventory, whether it's the contractor, civilian, or the software cost. Now, this is something where, as Dylan said, this is a long-term project until 2035. One of the things that OMB looks at very closely when we look at the agency budget request is this something that can be done in the next year? So if an agency requests $10 billion for something, really the first question we're going to ask is, how are you going to execute all those contracts, hire all those people, get all those people onboarded by the end of this fiscal year? And the answer is usually, we can't do that. So for us, this is really about spreading out the cost of this cryptographic inventory across multiple budget years until we get to 2035. And that's kind of something really important. In cybersecurity, we tend to be a little bit absolutist. If you don't, implement this across 100% of your network, you're going to get, compromised. And for us, when we talk to the budget side, they say, yeah, I've heard that before, but again, we don't think this is something that could happen in a year, just based on the time-space continuum. So really for us, it's about trying to think about how we do it across different budget years, and that includes both the inventory as well as the migration when it becomes available. So we don't expect, nor do we want, agencies to send us a $10 billion bill, not to say that's the number, but in year one. That's just not going to be feasible. And that even includes things such as I mentioned, that inventory. So if you have not done a manual inventory, then probably it's not the time to start thinking about the automated software. Let's push that off. Because also, again, we need to prioritize against different budget priorities. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Christian, and he's going to talk about all the great work CISA's doing.
All right. Thanks, Nick. And I think Dylan and Nick actually covered a lot of the ground of what CISA's doing. But what I would emphasize is that we are doing it specifically for U.S. critical infrastructure, right? And so, whereas Nick is very focused, appropriately on the U.S. government agencies that need to undertake this inventory process and be resourced appropriately to make that migration over time, we are dealing with U.S. critical infrastructure, meaning power, water, roads, IT and comms infrastructure, all across 16 critical infrastructure sectors that are mostly held in the private sector. They are mostly not held by the U.S. government in terms of ownership. And so CISA's role in this, in that environment is to provide guidance and to provide best practices, but we don't have a regulatory role to enforce this. And so the same guidance applies, right? Start by doing an inventory. And we've put out some very good guidance on how to do an inventory. I think, and I think other speakers before us have mentioned it too, but I think testing before you actually deploy a full upgrade is critically important as well. And then, one thing that CISA takes very seriously that I think I would want to emphasize, especially for private sector critical infrastructure owners and operators, is the ICT supply chain that's going to support your operations, right? And so just as much as you need to do an inventory of your own systems that you hold internal to your networks, if you're engaging with vendors and getting support from vendors, you need them to be doing exactly the same thing, and you need to build that into your contracts and into your service agreements so that your entire environment, your entire distributed network is protected in exactly the same way and held to exactly the same standard. And the final thing that I would point out is, after you've implemented and as you're planning for implementation, I think it's critical to build in a requirement for cryptographic agility, right? So I don't think it's fair for us to assume that the NIST standards to be released in 2024 are the final word on post-quantum cryptography and quantum-resistant encryption. I think if I were giving guidance to private sector infrastructure owners and operators, one of the most important things to emphasize is that this is a continuous process over time. And so in terms of long-term procurement cycles, especially for operational technology, where you're actually going out and buying equipment that's distributed, think of a power grid and how distributed the equipment is, across the power grid for transmission and distribution. If you're making those investments now, you should invest in things that can be further upgraded later, where you can swap out key length, where you can make upgrades over time, because NIST and I think the rest of the US government treat this as a long-term problem, not just for the first round of implementation, but as a steady, persistent challenge that we're going to have to continue addressing, not just by 2035, but for decades after that. And so I would encourage private sector critical infrastructure to treat it exactly the same way and to plan around it in exactly the same way to be able to migrate to the next iteration of what post-quantum cryptographic standards look like. And then to put a bow on it, and I think I speak for the US government perspective, but also the critical infrastructure perspective, in terms of how to approach this, the time for planning for this is now, and the standards will come out early next year, but the inventory process, the planning process, even the testing process with some of the algorithms that have already been validated by NIST, that can happen right now. And you'll save time and money and heartache by implementing that testing and planning regime now. And I've heard the word roadmap used quite a bit by previous speakers. That's exactly how I would think of it, right? In terms of resourcing and in terms of implementation, you should be on a schedule. You should be on a rhythm that is mapped out deliberately on behalf of your entire organization. And a roadmap is exactly the right way to think about it. The first step is inventory, but there are a lot of steps after that organizations can take now and buy down some of their risk. And so I don't know if we're taking questions or if we can just kind of chat amongst ourselves. Great.
Go ahead.
Curious about PQCs degrading our speed of communication or being more complicated than RSA. And has any thought been put to the notion of if we make the transition to PQC, we're degrading performance, and if this threat never emerges, we've just moved ourselves into a space of degraded performance?
So before I hand over to Nick, who is the I would say, before I hand over to Nick, I want to start by saying we're fooling ourselves if we think this threat is never going to materialize. There are quantum computers right now. They're not sufficiently mature to implement the requisite algorithms, but this is an engineering problem now, an engineering challenge to be overcome. And we humans are pretty good at overcoming engineering challenges. So, Nick.
Yeah, so this is always probably I've been talking after Dylan. He has an English accent, I have a slight Southern accent, but we are both wearing crazy socks, so that's the good news. So I can at least balance out there. So I would say, we are certainly aware of that possibility, and that's why when we wrote NSM10 and the following OMB guidance, we looked at the transition from TLS 1.2 to 1.3 and said, we need to be able to test these things before we put them into production. And so we gave agencies a very clear, allowance, not a mandate, but just hey, you can hold this memo and say I can do this, to test pre-standardized algorithms in their production systems. Having said that, though, inevitably there are going to be some kinks in this transition. The U.S. government, has a ton of legacy IT. Our networks are complex. Nobody knows how they're designed. Some of these things literally date back to the 70s. Not even an exaggeration, they really do. It's going to be a complex process. We're not going to be perfect at it at first. We do expect to see some performance degradation, and really what's going to happen is we're just going to have to, see it when it happens and address it when it happens. But as Dylan said, from our perspective, the possibility of a, advanced persistent threat actor in 2035 be able to hoover out tons of sensitive, health data is much more significant than the thought of, having a government website run slowly, which it probably already does. But we're working on that too.
And I would point out that's why prioritization is really important as part of your inventory, right? So the most sensitive data, the data with the longest, secrecy or privacy lifetime, that's where you should implement first. And so hopefully that narrows the impact to some of your most sensitive systems, which need to be protected the most carefully. But for some of your, higher availability, lower security threshold kind of systems, it may be less critical to migrate those first. And so as compute kind of increases over time across the whole network, hopefully it's balanced out a little bit easier.
Please, Christian, Nick, and Dylan, thank you so much. I imagine you guys are going to be here for a little bit, hopefully, and you can engage them when we do networking. And we are going to hear from NIST, but first we have Florence Lewine, who is going to join us to discuss preparing critical infrastructure stakeholders for post-quantum cryptography. Florence is the policy advisor in the Office of Cyber Infrastructure Risk and Resiliency at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
Hello, good morning. I think that a lot of what I am going to share with you today is going to echo a lot of what you've heard, but I think it'll be really good. Just kind of making sure that everyone leaves here today with a very firm understanding of exactly what the US government is doing. So I apologize if I share what you've already heard. All right, a quick overview of what we're gonna be discussing today. I'll give you an overview of the DHS Policy Office, where I come from, how we're thinking about quantum information science and how that fits into our policy and emerging technology goals. I'll give a quick overview of the quantum threat as the US government sees it, move into how we're advising critical infrastructure stakeholders on post-quantum cryptography and the migration process. And then we'll kind of move towards some of our forward-leaning initiatives, thinking about the risk challenges for tomorrow, and then provide you with some resources. All right, please excuse my boring US government slides, but get all the information out to you. This is a little bit of word salad here, a little bit about my office. From the Cyber Infrastructure Risk and Resilience Policy Team in the US Department of Homeland Security, we're leading development of cyber and technology and infrastructure policy. So kind of our mission is really to provide a uniting viewpoint on the department's policy, make sure that's in alignment with the goals of the administration. And another part of that is serving to represent the Department of Homeland Security on the National Security Council on cyber policy. And so it's really valuable to be here and have the opportunity to speak with you and make sure that the policies that we're advancing are in alignment with the communities that we serve and that we represent. So within my office, I work on the emerging technology team. Obviously, emerging tech is something that, is everywhere and, is connected to all cyber policy now. But a lot of our focus right now is on artificial intelligence and quantum information science policy, making sure that those advancements and that we're hearing about every day in the news right now are met with US government support, and we want to really encourage innovation while also adopting new policies safely. All right, the quantum threat as we see it, you know it, we go over it, we share it anyways. We know that a quantum computer of a sufficient capacity, otherwise known as a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, poses a major threat to asymmetric encryption models that are really in broad use today. And we don't know exactly when the ACRQC is going to arrive, but we know that the threat is already here. We know that because of Harvest Now, Decrypt Later campaigns, and because of the length of time it's going to take for new algorithms to be implemented, we know that the threat and the time to prepare is right now. And we know that asymmetric encryption models are used throughout the federal government to secure sensitive and confidential data. And it's also used throughout US critical infrastructure to secure critical infrastructure systems. And I know our partners at NIST are working on preparing the new post-quantum cryptography algorithms that are going to be quantum resistant to a CRQC. Those are expected to arrive next summer. All right, so understanding DHS's role within this, we know we partner a lot with CISA. In 2021, Secretary Mayorkas identified post-quantum cryptography as a major priority for the department in order to improve cybersecurity resilience. This was very early on in his tenure, and we've been working for a while now to develop DHS policy in response to that. We received further guidance from the White House through NSM 10, which tasked DHS as providing leadership, US leadership on quantum information science, and also responding to vulnerable cryptographic systems. So that's what leads me to see all of you here today. And so one of the first things that we did is prepare a post-quantum cryptography roadmap. We've heard about the roadmap. Everyone's been talking about the roadmap this morning. And here it is. We provided one. I can share this resource with you later. You're welcome to take a picture. It's all publicly available. You'll see right now we're still in the 2021 to 2023 phase. So right now our focus is really on the inventory, identification, and prioritization of vulnerable systems. So that includes systems that are both highly valuable, maybe of high risk from a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, because of the information that is stored on those systems, but it also includes systems that might take especially long to migrate to updated PQC. So understanding which systems are at highest risk within your organization will help to best prepare for the new algorithms. As we've said, we don't want the process to start only in 2024 when the algorithms are available. That shouldn't be the time when you start thinking about where your most valuable information sits. It is something that can be achieved in advance. And DHS really hopes to assist owners and operators of critical systems be prepared now for this migration process. So in the rollout to the release of the new standards, our partners at CISA, the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency, in partnership with NSA and NIST, have released this joint fact sheet. It just came out in August. It's also publicly available. And this is really to inform organizations that are responsible for supporting critical infrastructure about the impacts of quantum capabilities and encourage early planning. So that's what we really want to emphasize here today. If I leave you with nothing else, it's about emphasizing preparing right now. And while waiting on updated standards to be released, a lot of the cryptographic products and protocols and services that rely on public key infrastructure will be impacted and will need replaced just to even support or employ new quantum-resistant algorithms. And that's something that we can start encouraging stakeholders to take care of right now. So this starts with preparing a quantum readiness roadmap of your own, kind of one that mirrors the DHS roadmap for your internal organization. So we really want to encourage organizations to have a quantum readiness project management team to kind of scope how big of a process the migration process will be to PQC for your organization, prepare an inventory of the systems and assets that are most quantum vulnerable, and enable organizations to prioritize system for migration to the new algorithms as soon as those become available. And the quantum readiness roadmap really doesn't have to stay internal to your organization. We encourage you to share it, communicate with any vendors that you may have, and make sure that they're preparing for a quantum future as well, that they're implementing and migrating to new cryptographic standards. It really doesn't work if only certain organizations take this process on. Because of the supply chain, we're always looking at where vulnerabilities within your supply chain may fall and encouraging you to make sure that you're discussing with all vendors and supply chain vendors that, to cover any faults in the process. All right, so just to give a high-level overview of where we're seeing priorities for the migration process and encouraging critical infrastructure stakeholders to look. As we've mentioned before, looking at high-impact systems and industrial control systems that will be impacted first, looking at systems with long-term confidentiality and secrecy lifetimes that may be especially vulnerable to an attack. And we're also looking at the IT products and services that might be responsible for the migration process for your organization. I think, when system security upgrades are built into your system, a lot of the quantum risk to critical infrastructure can be very safely mitigated. So we're encouraging early planning and preparedness now to mitigate a lot of that risk before it arrives. All right, so turning to what's next, we know that post-quantum cryptography is not like the be-all, end-all of security. We know that with PQC, we're not going to mitigate all of the quantum risk in the future. In many ways, it's really just the first step. So we're also thinking about initiatives to help stakeholders prepare. Chief among this is really increasing quantum literacy in the US. We know that enhanced American competitiveness is really critical to solving these future risk challenges, and so DHS is working to enable quantum education through content that's available to cybersecurity stakeholders and critical infrastructure stakeholders throughout the public and the private sector. We're working in partnership with Google to prepare new tools for those. We want anyone, even without a high-level physics background, to be able to understand quantum risk and to be able to explain it and understand how it will affect their organization so that we can best prepare the current workforce and the future workforce for tomorrow's quantum challenges. And one thing that we're really interested in is working with all of you and kind of understanding how your organization might best like to receive quantum educational content, whether that be through white papers or podcasts or certification programs. So we want this to be really user-friendly and really digestible, and also something that would be valuable to you. So with that, I'll provide you with some resources. You're welcome to take a picture of that or come find me afterwards. I can share that. And that is all from me. Again, I just would really like to highlight that DHS is really committed to partnership with you and with critical infrastructure stakeholders to make sure that we're all prepared for a quantum future. So, thank you.
We do have time for a question or two for Florence.
Yes.
With respect to educating the workforce, are you also thinking of educating young people?
Yes, I think that that is also critical. I think the White House OSTP is also focused a lot on preparing a K through 12 educational program in partnership with their cybersecurity initiatives, but it is something that DHS is also working on. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Florence, so much. We're now going to dive into state-of-the-art and quantum-resistant algorithms. And we're going to hear from NIST, and specifically from Lily Chen, project leader of cryptographic technology at the National Institute of Standards and Technologies.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lily Chen. I'm the manager of the Cryptographic Technology Group at NIST. This morning, this journey has been mentioned quite a few times, and then my presentation may answer some of your questions about NIST journey in standardized the post-quantum cryptography algorithm. So the first question is why NIST? Why NIST standardized the post-quantum cryptography? So to answer these questions, we trace back about 50 years ago. NIST published the first public cryptographic standard. It's called the Data Encryption Standard, called DES. The DES, just like you know, is a 64 bits block cipher with only 56 bits of the key. So back to 1977, that's considered proper security, but not anymore. And so in the past 40 years, NIST continues to do the cryptographic standards. So this is, for example, we introduced public key cryptography because the internet requires many-to-many communications, right? So the key distribution center will not work. And also, the cryptographic research has advanced a lot. A lot of much more sophisticated attacks are available. For example, like side channel analysis. So today, nearly all commercial laptops, cell phones, internet routers, and everything implement NIST cryptographic standards. And the NIST cryptographic standards are mainly for non-national security government applications. And there are some part and used to call the Suite B. Now it's called the Commercial National Security Algorithm Suite. That also selects some NIST cryptographic algorithms and for their usage. So that's answer the question about why NIST work on the PQC. This is just a continue. We also did AES and Cezary, a new hash function, and this kind of cryptographic standards in the past. So that's answered the why part. Then, of course, we already covered a lot of ground in this session about how cryptographic algorithms are used. So there are two kind of crypto algorithms. One is called public key cryptography, and another is called symmetric key cryptography. So usually in communication protocols, the public key cryptography or asymmetric key cryptography will use to establish the common key, because no body can distribute to Alice and Bob. So Alice and Bob will use public key cryptography to mutually authenticate to each other and also establish a common key or multiple common keys. Then the bulk data, like the voice, email, and the video, audio, will be encrypted by symmetric key cryptography. So these kind of protocols are commonly used, for example, like TLS and the Internet Key Exchange, these kind of protocols. So another kind of usage of the public key cryptography is for the digital signatures. Because today, we download, every device is an open platform. So every day you download applications. Even for a conference, you download the application for this conference. Then in order to make sure that you will download the malicious software or application, you need to get authorization and authentication. The public key-based digital signature is used for that. So then this picture will give you a general kind of idea about NIST cryptographic standards. We have public key-based, we have symmetric key-based, like block ciphers and hash functions. We have some guidelines about key generation and key management, and including transition. And we have some basic tools like a random number generator and also for a key derivation function. So this is not a complete list, but give you some idea how this NIST cryptographic standard look like. So we talk about the quantum computer impact. So major the impact is in the public key cryptography part. So the postal quantum cryptography will target on the public key cryptography standard. And for symmetric key cryptography, and the quantum computer will reduce the complexity to the square root. So if we know how much that costs for 2 to the 64, we can increase the key size and to resist quantum attacks. So how to deal with quantum attacks? So we talked about the PQC and also called the quantum resistant cryptography. So basically, we need to go back to see what happened, right? Why the current existing public key cryptography is not secure anymore. So like RSA is based on integer factorization. And for the classical computers, it is a hard problem. But for quantum computers, because of the Shor's algorithm, it's not secure anymore. So that's in order to make a quantum resistant algorithm, we need to find those hard problems, which is hard both for classical computers and also for quantum computers. So that's the task. And this is just the first step, because there are many such kind of hard problems. But some of them can be used to build cryptographic algorithms, and some of them cannot. So these are two steps, hard problems and the cryptographic design. So you might ask that whether these kind of problems exist. Fortunately, the answer is yes. Post-quantum cryptography has been a very active research area in the past more than 10 years. So a lot of papers, like, between the 500 to 600 papers published each year on the post-quantum cryptography. So then your next question will be whether if the integer factorization is not hard and the discrete log is not hard, then what kind of problem is hard for both classical computers and quantum computers? So there are some such kind of hard problems. At the same time, and based on this kind of hard problem, we have the post-quantum cryptography. So these major categories are lattice-based and code-based. Lattice-based, it's the hard problem is to find the shortest vector in the integer lattice. And the code-based is the decoding problem for random coding. And others like a multivariate and hash function-based and elliptic curve asynchrony-based. This is a major categories of the current post-quantum cryptography. So NIST PQC standardization has been a long journey. We started to consider the post-quantum cryptography in 2011. So we hired some expertise and postdocs to work on the post-quantum cryptography research. In 2016, we announced the criteria and the requirements, as well as call for proposals. So this will answer the question where NIST got these post-quantum cryptography algorithms. We didn't design by NIST researcher, but we engage the whole worldwide kind of process to select the post-quantum cryptography. In 2017, we received 82 submissions from 25 countries in 6 continents. So you can see the engagement in the worldwide engagement. And then we had several kind of, the first round and is 69, because some of the package are not complete based on the criteria and the requirement. Then in the past 5 years, we narrowed down to twice, from the first round to the second round and to the third round. And for each round, we have the conference, and we also write a report to tell people why we selected the algorithms we selected. So then in 2022, last year, in July, we announced the third round selection. So you can see that 4 stars in the bottom. That's what we selected. I will talk about that further. And so recently, in August of 2023, we released the draft standards. We released 3 draft standards. Our target is to publish the first set of the PQC standards in 2024. So what are they of these selected? So I mentioned about the lattice-based. So that's 4 stars in the previous slide, 4 algorithms. One is called crystal Kyber. This is a key encapsulation mechanism. It will use to establish the key. Remember the figure I show about like protocols like TLS and like Internet Key Exchange. They need a public key cryptography to establish the common key, right? For the both communication parties, so that the Kyber can be used to establish that key. And then It is a lattice-based, and it's specified in draft FIPS 203. We call it a modular lattice-based key encapsulation mechanism standard. Then the next is called Crystals Dilithium. It's a lattice-based digital signature schemes. It is specified in draft FIPS 204. And this is the first two are both lattice-based. One is a key encapsulation mechanism, and another is a digital signature scheme. Then Sphinx Plus is a stateless hash-based signature. And remember, we already have stateful hash-based signature specified in 800.208. For that, it's basically one-time signature. So you need, for stateful hash-based signature, you need to manage the status of the key. For one key, it will, once it is used to send one message, then you cannot use it anymore. So for that kind of digital signature, it put the key management burden to the implementation. However, Sphinx Plus is a hash-based signature, but it's stateless. So there's no state management problem. So Falcon is another lattice-based digital signature scheme. Right now, in August, we released FIPS 203, 204, and 205. And the comment period will end November 22. So please come to this website to take a look at our draft FIPS. And we welcome comments from the real-world implementation to tell us whether the standards are clear enough and any kind of misunderstanding possible, and where we can improve that standard. The Falcon will be in FIPS 206, and we will take some more time to develop the standard. We will release in 2024 for public comments. Well, that's not the end yet. So next, what is the next step? And obviously, we will publish these 4 standards. And right now, we still have the first round candidates. The first round candidates, 3 of them are code-based. One is a classical MacLeese. I want to say the classical MacLeese has a long history. It was proposed in the 1970s. But because it has a very large key size, so it has not been adopted. But it is quantum resistant. And from that point of view, we need to look at it again to see whether it can fit into today's application. And the Paik and the HQC are both code-based, and it has some optimization about the public key size, and we like to know how that will work. All of them are key encapsulation algorithm, and there's one algorithm called Psych. It's a Cezary-based cryptography. It was broken by two Belgian mathematicians. So that one will not be considered. For that, I want to say a little bit more, because you will ask, well, that is broken, sounds very worrisome, right? So the candidate in the first round can be broken. Well, that category is relatively new. And this attack, that will tell how high risk about the cryptographic design. Because indeed, that the attack is very impressive by the 2 mathematicians. But that does not mean that a Cezary-based cryptography is not secure. It's just that this design is failed. Then we have some 40 additional signature schemes in the pool for the further evaluation. And why we want these additional signature schemes? Because we wanted to diversify. And remember, the key word is diversify our portfolio to make sure that they are not in the same category. And the category, I mean, like the lattice-based, code-based, or multivariate, or whatsoever, we don't want them to in the same category. We wanted to diversify our portfolio. So this national secure MIMO 10 was mentioned in previous presentation. So and also in the panel, I'm not going to read these two paragraphs, but I want to point out the two keywords. One is transition, and another is migration. So considering that the public key cryptography has been used everywhere, in your cell phone, in your laptop, when you connect to your VPN, when you download a piece of software, everywhere. So replace that with quantum resistant cryptography is really not an easy task. So we need to start now. So then I like to mention that the NCCOE project. NCCOE is a unit of NIST and work with industry partners. And this has been mentioned in Microsoft presentation before, and we work together to see how the quantum-resistant cryptography can be used in the different application environment. And you can search for NCCOE migration to PQC. You will find this project website. So I end my talk with kind of summary. So the cryptography has been the cornerstone for cybersecurity. When these quantum computers become available, the break is catastrophic to the well-deployed public key cryptography today. And so the NIST will finalize the first set of PQC standards next year, and it's a time to prepare for the migration to PQC for cybersecurity in the quantum time. So I end my talk here, and I think I have some questions. I have some time to take some questions. Thank you.
We do have time for one question.
Yes.
How is NIST addressing AI standards with the quantum standards as well?
AI standard. Well, I believe that NIST right now have an AI framework, and the AI is more on the different area. AI is more on the cybersecurity side instead of the cryptography side. I'm sure that AI will use cryptography for security, but at this level, because it's still a framework, how to use the post-quantum cryptography is not detailed yet.
Great. Dr. Chen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to break our fireplace out again, because now we have an industry pioneer fireside chat, and we're going to dive into pioneering quantum portfolio optimization on Dell's hardware. Rafael Martin-Cuevas, senior consultant for quantum computing at EY, will be talking with Victor Fong, distinguished engineer at Dell Technologies. Gentlemen.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? Awesome. Rafael, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you everyone for coming today. So I'm Rafael Martin-Cuevas. I'm part of EY Global Quantum Lab. And with me today is Victor. Would you like to do a brief introduction?
Sure, as soon as the slide come up.
I will take a few minutes.
So you showed this one. Nope. Okay. Oh, hey. Awesome. Thanks a lot. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. So I'm Victor Fong. I come from Dell Research. We are a team with about 150 researchers across the globe. Quantum computing is one of our research domain. We also have a lot of people looking at generative AI as well as other machine learning. We also look at how to apply machine learning to enterprise use cases. We also look at zero trust security. So if you are interested in any of those domains, please feel free to reach out to us.
My name is Rafael Martin-Cuevas. I work in EY's Global Quantum Lab. So basically, from the Global Quantum Lab, our role has to do with how we strategize on the application of quantum technologies and the adoption of these technologies across the firm. And among the activities that we do include the development of the training programs, the partnerships that are going to be leveraged by the different teams inside the firm. And also, we try to keep an approach that will allow us to apply these technologies across the firm. We not only do auditing services, but I'm from the consulting part, so we structure the application into these different domains. We normally structure the application of quantum technologies and not only computing, but also, for example, cybersecurity in terms of how we provide trust to our clients in terms of cryptography and solutions that ensure the privacy of the information and the security of the information. We normally include also computing as a way to transform the different businesses and identify use cases and applications that are possible with quantum computing and could leverage these technologies. And finally, sustainability is also for us one of the key pillars because of the impact that it's going to have. So more than happy to be with you today. And maybe we could start, Victor, by explaining a bit the approach that we have followed so far. So we have been exploring quantum computing for optimization. So maybe you would like to introduce why optimization is relevant for quantum computing and how we follow this approach.
That sounds great. Before we go into that, maybe I can just talk a bit about how Dell see quantum computing, right? So a lot of people may be asking, what is Dell doing in the quantum computing ecosystem? The truth is, I think a lot of people agree that quantum computing cannot exist without classical infrastructure. If we were to look at the end-to-end flow, the data would likely be coming from traditional classical storage that would be turned into quantum circuit for workload, right? And then there could be one of the two approach by utilizing virtual QPU as well as physical QPU. But regardless of how the circuit are compute, it would still be sent back to a classical infrastructure for further processing as well as to determine the next iteration, right? So Dell technology is actually following our usual strategy. We don't manufacture CPU and GPU. And just like in this case, we also don't have any plan to manufacture any QPU. However, our customer look at us as a system integrator as well as a trusted advisor. So we would still like to continue that role into the quantum era as well. Now going back to what Rafael asked me about quantum computing. Regarding optimization. So when we talk about quantum computing, there are typically three use cases. The first case is optimization, right? And then there are two other use cases that are machine learning as well as simulation for physical system as well. So why we chose optimization to begin with and to engage with EY is because it is widely applicable for a lot of different industry. every single enterprise have their own optimization problems that they need to solve. And if we could just provide some improvement on those optimization problems, for a lot of enterprise, it will mean really, really big results. That's why we chose it in the beginning. And also, there are quite a lot of easy to implement type of optimization problem that we can tackle in the very beginning. So the bar of entry is actually pretty low. And that is the reason why we chose optimization to begin. But out of all the optimization problems that are including, supply chain, logistic, there are, scheduling problems. Why did EY chose the optimization problem for financial portfolio? Can you tell us why that is impactful?
Absolutely. Basically, there are several reasons for that. One of them is that portfolio optimization is one of the greatest examples of how quantum computing can be applied for optimization and is relevant for the financial services industry. But the underlying problem can be also applied to many other applications. And it's also for us a way to explain both internally and externally how these problems are usually tackled. And portfolio optimization specifically is a problem that was easy to convey and easy to explain to audiences and clients. So it's a good way for us to start this exploration. And we identify normally 3 different stages when it comes to integrating these technologies, because quantum computing, as you know, is not something that will act independently, but also is something that will have to be integrated with different technologies. So when we started to explore this algorithm, for us, it was a way to explore how these models, these implementations, can be implemented, but also how we can leverage the expertise from Dell in order to run these solutions with hardware that is able to provide significant results. The approach that we normally follow has these different stages. So we start with a pre-processing stage, in which, and this is a classical stage, in which we retrieve the data that is going to be used to build the model, to prepare the algorithm, and so on. In this case, we are formulating the model as a binary optimization problem, and we have to retrieve some data from the value of the stocks, the context for each one of those companies, in order to actually build the model that will allow us to explore those many possible combinations of possible portfolios. After that, we have the model that is going to be executed on their systems, and that's where Dell came in and helped us in order to execute this model. So in this case, it was run with different systems. Victor will provide a few more details into that. And afterwards, we retrieve the results, and it's also something we have to explore, how to ensure that the solution that we retrieved is actually aligned with the business requirements, how is it valid, and how can we actually put it into a final application executed against the market, for example, so that we can leverage those results and obtain a solution. If we go to the next slide, thanks, Victor. This is an overview of how the model was implemented. So there are several things at consideration here. It's not only about maximizing the returns, which is the usual approach that we will want to obtain, but also about minimizing the returns, ensuring that the companies that we select are taking into account the social, environmental, and governance aspects that are going to be critical in the upcoming years. And finally, how we comply with other requirements, like, for example, an available budget. The model that we built allows us to apply different strengths, different weights to each one of those considerations, and it's a way for us to explore different possible combinations or different goals in order to obtain the results that are expected for each one of those executions. And this is also something that doesn't work in isolation, let's say. It's not a Python code that sits somewhere, so it has to be something that is integrated with other technologies and actually serves the business and the final client. So for us, this is also a technology that we integrate with other approaches. Like, for example, you are seeing here the user interface that we built on top. So in this case, we are able to compare the execution of different systems. We are able to see the performance with backtesting against the actual market or maybe an index. And we're able to visualize the final results that we obtained in order to understand what's the final composition of that portfolio that we are trying to obtain. So that's basically an overview. We'll get into more details, but Victor, maybe you would like to explain more or less what the methodology that we, and also Dell, usually follows for this.
Absolutely. So there usually 4-step process. So a lot of people are actually doing a lot of these optimization just manually today, and it may be a surprise to you, but our supply chain team actually have some manual workload as well. So the first step is really to do solve the problem in a manual fashion, right? So that you can define what is the constraint and what is the objective of each of the optimization challenge that you're facing. So those are 2 steps, right? To define the objective very clearly, I think that is a very important step. And then the third step is to formulate that into something that can be processed by quantum annealing, as well as other type of software as well. So as you are formulating the problem, chances are it may be a linear problem or it may be a quadratic problem, depending on what type of formulation that you end up using, the software is also different, right? And then once you formulate it, you go for an R&D process, you test that with real data, then you're ready to automate that. When it comes to automation, there are a whole range of heterogeneous type of server that can help you solve your problem, right? So which one you pick actually depends on what type of your problem implementation. For some use cases, performance may be important because the use case is real time. So the user is really looking to obtain result as soon as possible. For some use cases, the quality of solution is important, right? So we're trying to get to the most optimal type of solution. There are other considerations as well, such as capital costs, as well as operation costs, and also how easy it is to formulate the challenge. In the white paper, we actually used an annealing type of implementation, which utilized quadratic unconstrained binary optimization formulation. And it has been a really easy experience. Originally, when I learned quantum computing to learn how the circuit works, it took me quite a while to learn that. However, by using annealing, by using Kubo formula, it only took me like 2 days to learn it from beginning to end. So I would say that the bar of entrance for that type of solution is actually pretty low. And if we were to dive down into what is the difference between quantum annealing versus a gate-based type of QPU, is that gate-based QPU, of course, is in practice a lot more powerful. And also in theory, it should be able to solve a lot of different quantum use cases because it's universal computing, right? So those use cases include optimization, machine learning, and chemistry simulation, as we talked about in the previous slide. But for annealing, it's really specialized to solve optimization problems. However, compared to gate-based, the simulation space as well as the computational space is actually a lot larger. With one of our vendors, who is actually sitting right there, they can support up to 300,000 binary variables. With the state of art in gate-based quantum computing today, I think is still in the hundreds range. Now, that's not to say that in the future it will not get more powerful, right? The input is also a lot easier compared to quantum circuit, just from a learning perspective. And also, we look at it as a transitional type of technology, because if the customer were to invest in formulating their optimization challenges with Kubo today, then it can have an automated, seamless way to transition that into quantum circuit. So in the future, if QPUs become more powerful, then potentially we can just migrate the existing implementation to gate-based implementation to utilize the more powerful machines that we would have in the future.
Maybe we have a few additional slides. So the ones concerning how to access this content. So this is an amazing collaboration that we have developed alongside Dell. And this has led to several publications, webinars, web blogs. So I invite you to take a look at any of those contents. But maybe, Victor, we could give an overview of the white paper, the different structures, and what to expect.
Absolutely. So during the engagement of the white paper, I think we worked together for about 2 months. Our team really sort of brainstorm on different use cases, and at the end we come up with the portfolio optimization challenge. And of course, UI bring in their domain expertise of the financial sector, as well as the understanding of different constraints, right? And from the Dell team, we have done the formulation of the problem and also include different real-world constraints that has been provided by EY. And we also run it on the NEC factor annealing library so that we can utilize all of the specialized hardware. So the implementation that we did had about 10,000 binary variables, but as we increased the problem size, we could fully utilize the NEC factor engine's 300,000 binary variable as well. So that is something that we are looking to do in the future. Now with that, why don't we get into a Q&A, because this is a fire chat, right? Do you guys have any questions for us?
Right.
From our experience, a real-world use case is typically in the thousands of range. So that's where we are heading toward, I think.
Thousands corrected or uncorrected?
Usually corrected. Yep.
How aggressively do you check that there isn't a classical algorithm to solve the same problems? This is like something that always comes up with these optimization questions, is that yes, we do use a quantum computer to solve it, but if you really hired like a really high-speed computer scientist to say, hold my beer, I can solve it faster.
Yep, I fully agree. So it depends on the type of use case. So let's say if it is a very common use case like traveling salesman, right? Heuristic approach is usually the best in that type of domain. Now, that is also because they have like decades of research going into how to solve that by using classical infrastructure, right? Now, by using Cubo, on the other hand, a lot of the real-world constraint can be implemented fairly easily. So that's one of the criteria that we should use when we are trying to select an execution environment, which is how easy it is to implement such a formula, right? So let's say if it is a real-world constraint that have like 100 different constraints, Cubo can easily do that compared to if you try to do that in heuristic, it may take a while to formulate that. Did that answer your question?
Is there a plan to repeat your experiment on gate-based QPUs anytime soon?
Yeah, we are trying to select different use cases from within Dell Technologies as well. The annealing solution, we have been partnering with NEC to work with our internal supply chain team. So there are actually 2 implementations right now for use cases. And we're looking to identify another supply chain use case so that we can utilize gate-based quantum processing unit for that as well.
Adding to that, absolutely, of course, we are also considering the gate-based technology. And for that, there are, as you know, error correction technologies that we'll be using in order to explore how soon we can leverage those technologies in order to solve this problem. But the problem that we are facing in gate-based technology at the moment is the coherence that we are facing in the systems. So for now, as Victor explained, this is for us also a transitional technology. But after that, in the long term, we will want to look at solutions that also allow us to explore more different algorithms to obtain solutions to these problems. And in terms of optimization, we're also developing methodologies on how to, independently of the problem, the industry, and so on, how to explore optimization with these systems in a way that allows us to have a coherent methodology, interfaces, error mitigation tools, and so on, so that we can obtain the best results as soon as a new problem in the field of optimization is identified.
Yep.
Some of them are claiming, oh, this is 1,000 times better than this one, and so on and so forth, right?
Yep.
And which one have you found to be the most?
So we have done a lot of comparison between different vendors. Some are CPU-based, some are GPU-based, some depends on protonic implementation, some specialized hardware, for example, the NEC example, right? So we have done quite a lot of comparison of that, and our finding is that it depends on what type of problem and what's the size range, and the type of constraint and how it is implemented. So it's actually not easy for a lot of the users to determine, what is the best execution environment for their Cubo, which is why within Dell Technologies, we have done a research on how to use machine learning, classical machine learning, to look at a Cubo formula and then try to select the best execution environment amongst all of those, right? So that type of automated orchestration platform, I think, will be very useful in the future. And hopefully we will hit the market with that very soon. Well, since I'm from Dell Technologies, of course, I'm going to tell you that on-premise is better. However, I think it depends on the use case, right? So let's say if you have data gravity and if you have a huge amount of data from an on-premise perspective, then utilizing a classical type of software, whether it's specialized hardware or CPU and GPU based, I think that would be one solution, right? And it also depends on the operational cost as well as the capital cost, right? So if you put all of those variables together, then you can make a decision based on that. And also another thing to mention is that with a hybrid type of system, let's say if you have on-premise classical computation, right? You can process the data with the classical computation on-premise and then send the quantum circuit to a remote QPU as well. So since you're only sending the circuit, then it's actually very difficult to do reverse engineering to sort of come back to the original data.
In the case of Kubo approaches also, I've seen a few solutions that focus on understanding how the final model looks like as a way to at least understand what type of problem was sent to the final system. You can't really, at this point at least, get a full insight into what the specific problem was and what are the constraints that was the input data, but you can start to understand what type of problem, at least from a mathematical standpoint, it was. And as Victor said, the specific use case, the industry, the type of data that you provide to the algorithm is going to determine the privacy measures that you need to take. So between choosing on cloud and on-premise, it will heavily depend on the type of application and data that you are using. For us at this point, we are exploring these solutions mainly on the cloud, not that much on-premise, because we need to understand the different technologies that are available, what's the benefit in each one of them, as a way to explore the technology before we actually put the solutions into production with real data that could be compromised. But that's definitely something that we want to explore, and absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Victor and Rafael, thank you very much. We're going to keep the fireplace out here because we have our final fireside chat on the quantum data center, its technology and impact. And we're very excited to have Hanhee Paik, the Senior Research Scientist at IBM Quantum, and Cezary Mazurek, Director of the Poznan Supercomputing and Networking Center.
Hello. Oh. Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying at the end of the session. So my name is Hanhee Paik. I'm from IBM, a senior research scientist. Just to introduce myself a little bit, I'm a quantum physicist, quantum scientist that I actually got my PhD from the University of Maryland, joined Quantum Institute in 2007. And I'm one of the first generations or early students who got a PhD in quantum computing and working on quantum computing for 20 years. And I just became the American Physical Society Fellow in 2021 for my contribution to advanced quantum computing. And my new role is now to help everyone in the world to develop the quantum ecosystem. And that's why I invited Cezary here, who's also been working with us for a long time at IBM. So a little bit of the background is the quantum computing is now, I guess we talked about a lot of quantum cryptography, and then I think the talk right before this was about how to use quantum computers. So we basically kind of saw the full cycle of beginning of the Joe's talk with the quantum computing, and then we talked about the quantum security, and then we were coming back to how we can use quantum computing for our science and the social impact. And definitely the quantum computing is becoming the useful tool. So currently more than 100 plus qubits are available for commercial use, and many scientists and industry R&Ds are using the quantum computing to create a value. And technologically, we are at the point that quantum computing is solving problems that classical computer is very challenging to solve. So in that sense, that I'd like to introduce like a success case or successful case that how global quantum ecosystem is adopting quantum computing to create a value. So we have this global leader here. He's a CEO of the Poznan Supercomputing and Networking Center in Poland. So we can hear about his, the quantum journey. So thank you so much for being here, Cezary. Maybe introduce yourself briefly, and then, yeah, maybe introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for participating in this session. And first of all, it was to say that it was early 90s when Poland was quite unsure how the economy, how the science will develop after we change and release this from the Russian impact, this country from the Russian impact in '89. And then we had a very important decisions to take, and one of these decisions were to invest in science in terms of building our own cyber infrastructure or IT infrastructure to support scientists in Poland. I was, in that time, in 1993, graduated by Technical University of Poznan University of Technology, and I was lucky enough with two other colleagues to be offered with the work with the newly created Supercomputing Center in Poznan, and it is lasted 30 years, and it is my third kid. And we started in 6 people, and now we have 500 people on board. Why it is important? Because that was the core fundament of our approach, attitude for scientists. We started to develop technology. We started to invest in infrastructure in terms of fiber optic networking or supercomputers to offer capacities which are not economically or technologically which are not limiting scientists in doing their research. And that's why we also came into quantum computing. And what we do now is to span our activities in a very broad range of technologies, starting from communication to algorithms to drones to Internet of Things, many other areas, but also application areas. We start from healthcare, agriculture, education, and many other social aspects of digital transformation to address them with our technology, with our infrastructure. That's why we focus very much on proof of value projects. And one of the area which we recently handle is quantum computing, together with IBM when we joined the hub and the network of hubs in 2022. But formally, we started with quantum communication infrastructure, with secure communication. So we have this approach to advance researchers, industry, and society with a, so to say, technological push. And that happened also in terms of quantum.
Okay, thank you. So do you have some examples how are the Poznan data center users are using quantum computing, like some statistics or some examples?
Yeah, we have actually threefold users or usage. First of all, as we are operator among 22 other universities and Polish Academy of Sciences institutes in Poland of the cyber infrastructure, we have our users. So they are using quantum technology as well. We have the largest number of users is from chemistry, quantum chemistry, so it's natural they are using for their simulations and calculation the quantum computing, and this is the first, let's say, model. The second model is our own research and development work, because we joined European funded projects before Poland became European Union member. And that's why we obtain funding for doing research in technology to deploy the research results in our infrastructure. And it is the same with the approach to quantum computing. So we started to explore the optimization techniques or the machine learning algorithms with the usage of quantum libraries and provide the results to our users and deploy them in our infrastructure. The third group of users are quantum physics. They are helping us to understand the error correction and all the algorithms which require basic research also. They are contributing to this area.
So the Poznan data center is, you're saying that it's run by or operated by the group of scientists. Could you maybe explain a little bit of the governance structure of the Poznan data center?
Yes, so the Polish Academy of Sciences is the network of scientific institutions, and it's not governmental owned, but it is governmental funded. And of course, the funding scheme is focusing on supporting the infrastructure in terms of operational availability for the users, and also grants to develop the technology and application areas. More or less 20% of our budget comes from our government. Another 20 comes from our users, because we are also operating research network in Poland. So like Internet 2 in US and in many other countries, we are providing network access to our users. This is also contributing to our budget. 60% of our budget comes from European Union and other research funding agencies in the country and in Europe. And this allows us to be quite independent on the governmental structure. We have actually in 2 weeks elections, so we see how it will develop. But for many years, we've been able to tackle the awareness of our government in continued investment in research infrastructure, especially digital infrastructure. We have Polish roadmap for research infrastructure to help put the priorities as the strategy, long-term strategy for this. And also quantum is among the largest research infrastructure which we invest in now.
So could you also maybe introduce some impact? So, there's a big data center that brings the computational technologies, both classical and quantum. Could you maybe share with us some examples of impact that you are bringing to the region through your data center?
Yes, the impact is very important for us, because we show that the technology push is a good model to attract the users, the researchers, the industry and society. So first of all, having the IBM program, we started, and having funding for the Ministry of Digital Affairs in Poland, we started to invite researchers to work for incubation program to let them conduct their quantum programs on their universities. And for the half of a year, we actually learned them how to use the quantum system and what are the scenarios for hybrid and computing. And then we led them to initiate the activities on their universities. And the first impact we observed was that several universities immediately started their education and academic curricula program for quantum computing, especially the largest one, Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan. They started to recruit the students for 5 years study based on quantum technology. The second impact is important for our city and for our region, because in the time where we are now, we know that IT specialists can work in any place in the world. We want them to come and build the skills and keep the talents in Poland instead of living in nice, warm and
nice and warm
European countries. Yes, that's why we need to attract new skilled people in this after the technical study to stay in Poznan and collaborate with a great talented people. We've observed this also in the situation we have now on the eastern border, that for instance some Ukrainian students and even 15 years old school pupils are decided to start studying in Poznan because they've heard about the quantum initiative. And that's a really big impact because we started to bring talented people to the region. The third impact, which I can also give, is more for international collaboration and position of our center in terms of Poznan. Quantum initiative with IBM helped us to obtain one of the 6 quantum computers in Europe, which will be installed in Poznan next year. Technology developed in Europe. And this is also very important to mention that we are technology agnostic. We started with IBM, but we test other technologies, optical quantum computers, ion traps, and many others, just to make sure that we tune technology for the needs of our users, and we know the best and the good or the strong and the weakness of each technology to offer something which is the best suited for our users.
I also heard that you are using quantum computing for deploying your drones. What's the project?
Yes, this is very interesting area which raised outside the standard users we collaborate. The National Agency for Air Traffic Control, they were interested in solving or resolving the conflicts in air traffic with the quantum algorithm. So this is one of the use cases which is practically now tested by the agency, how to quickly discover and resolve the conflicts in air traffic, especially between the manned and unmanned traffic. And this came actually also starting from the infrastructure which we invested in, because last month we opened a newly created laboratory on airfield next to Poznan, close to Poznan, and the laboratory is focused on unmanned traffic, but it's already a member of Diana initiative, which brings incubation funding from NATO to test civil technologies on the airfield, and also quantum is another case which we started.
Sounds pretty exciting, actually, that you are actually using that quantum computing for the
it's really my problem to explain to my daughters what their dad is doing at work.
I see. So, do you have any immediate challenges that you have to tackle in upcoming years, in the next couple of years?
Well, the point is we have challenges coming from our current involvement in European funded projects, and hybrid computing is one among them, to offer algorithms which we are able to offer for application areas involving different architectures like hybrid algorithms, and also different quantum architectures or technologies to be best suitable for particular areas. The really promising challenge, which also I'm interested in from my personal research and science, is the life sciences and particularly healthcare. We recently applied for joining the eBrains partnership, which is a continuation of Human Brain Project. And in terms of quantum computing, quantum technologies, we really look for having more than support for better or faster data analytics in quantum, in terms of analyzing what is going on in our brain, how we can simulate the brain activities, which is actually also composed from quantum activities, in the quantum machine to better recognize the disease development, or to better identify the reasons which disease, especially neurodegenerative diseases, are developing. The future challenge also from application area, which comes to my mind very often, is the virtual reality and interaction in the virtual reality. We talk a lot about data analytics and science with quantum, but I think for the better mental health rehabilitation, or for better art and entertainment, there's a big potential in quantum to interact with the people.
That's just pretty exciting for you have a lot of things to do in the next couple of years. So what is your long-term vision then for the next 10 years? That how would you like to grow your Poznan, supercomputing and networking center, and then also how you position yourself in Poland in terms of a large European initiatives on the quantum and classical computing integration?
Yes, so basically for a long time, we've been investing in infrastructure to support our users and to make sure that Polish research and Polish science is advancing with the technology. And now we feel like it's a time to also handle this on the global size, so global area. So we look for next maybe 7-10 years for the global partnerships and global collaboration. And what I mean is, again, keeping the talented people and working on the solutions at Poznan, but offer them to industry or to other global partners as the solutions abroad. And the point is, for the long-term vision, is also about having right competences on our premises to tackle new challenges like this one with healthcare or life sciences. And we will be definitely looking for global partnership in this because they are global. I mean, we cannot do brain research in terms of local research community. We have to look for global. That area is important. The second part of my personal long-term vision in terms of driving the future development of PSNC is also related for combination of other like computing technologies in terms of quantum. So we have quite advanced quantum communication infrastructure, quantum key distribution for secure communication over the network we have. We have the pilot connection between Poznan and Warsaw, working with the QCI. And the connection between the quantum computing, quantum communication, memory access, distributed computing in the infrastructure we have, it's actually the national laboratory which we can offer to test these opportunities, and hopefully we will also find the partners on the global scale. We are partner of Internet 2, we are partner of GIANT, European GIANT network. Europe is funding within the Euro HPC big money to invest in quantum. We are already participating in this, and it's not only about installing the new technology, it's also about the development of fast access to these resources and communication. And this is our future area in terms of technology development. And in terms of the application areas, again, life sciences, media, and so on. But I think with the quantum and with the technologies we have, it's also big potential to find the new areas which were not till now, which were not in the core user set for classical computing, and try to rethink their problems in terms of availability of quantum computing. This is the future vision of us, for us also in terms of quantum, but not only. And we hope we will stop growing a little bit, because I have a real problem with 500 people and managing the infrastructure for research with this. But nevertheless, it's 30 years of experience, so we will also manage.
I see. So maybe another side question is the Poznan became one of the 6 sites that Euro HPC designated to bring the quantum computer as a part of the classical infrastructure and integrate, right? But there's like a Eastern European, the computing capabilities, and also Western Europe's also have a separate things. So do you see any how are they gonna work together? Do you see more demands coming from the Eastern Europe, or do you see yourself, I mean, Poland is a part of EU, but you guys see in the part of the whole EU, or what's the landscape there, and then some sort of a...
Yeah, it's always a trade-off when we should think about our own value to be offered to European value chain, or we should be a partner to be the customer of value chain built in Europe. In the quantum, we actually were not sure whether we should apply for or not for this European HPC quantum installation until I figure out that there's one provider who is using Polish technology. So the Polish company is contributing some technology to one of the producers. That we said, okay, if this is the case, then there's a chance that Polish government will fund 50% of the not small money to localize the one of these technologies in Poland. And it happened actually. We have now 6 centers, and one of them is in, well, maybe 2 of them are in Eastern Europe, because Czech Republic has also in the consortium with Finnish center the location. However, the framework for collaboration between them is already proposed by Commission. Basically, we start now with hosting agreements, and we will obtain the installation. But on the hybrid computing and the algorithms for hybrid quantum and classical computing, we all in 6 centers apply for one project. So they are from the very beginning, all 6 hosting centers are forced to collaborate on the solutions. And there will be, of course, one leading, not us, but we are rather thinking that this is the right way to build the Europe-wide equal infrastructure and also shared knowledge about this key and emerging technologies like quantum computing is.
Okay, so any questions from the audiences that anything about the computing capabilities and users? Yep.
Nice discussion. I have a little more question about the technical side of combining quantum computing and HPC centers. So do you see any challenges having vacuum system like cryogenics in that kind of setting?
Yeah, they are for sure. And of course, we address them individually by trying to obtain different technologies from different providers. IBM is of course, at the beginning unique because we use the cloud infrastructure and the computer is not installed in Poznan, it's in the network. But nevertheless, we figure out that we are able to, for instance, for some algorithms already contribute, for instance, for Qiskit development. And for instance, for having this air traffic control and optimization, we have our own library already, which will be contributed to Qiskit. I hope I will not. I can say this, but
sure, yeah, sure.
Okay. But that's basically some points which we found from the technical part quite, let's say, natural. From the European project, it's more challenging because the systems are already in the development. We are constantly negotiating the conditions, and actually the part of the project which will last for 5 years is also figuring out how we can effectively build the hybrid solutions accessible through giant network for broader European community. And this is the core reason why EuroHPC is funding this project.
Maybe quick addition for just the engineering aspect is I don't think there is any engineering or scientific technological barrier to bring quantum and classical. Right now, the method is to connect them through classical communication links. So the readout results from quantum computing, which will be classical signal, will be processed through the classical computer. So I think Joe earlier today, they explained a few algorithms. So we need to actually develop the algorithms that efficiently use the outcome of the quantum computer to integrate with a part of the classical algorithms. I think EY and Dell were also showing some examples, right? And in that sense, then whether quantum computing is run by cryogenics or vacuums or ion traps or superconducting doesn't really matter. It'll be like one machine right next to the bunch of the the HPCs next to each other. Similar to if you go to HPC centers, there are a bunch of computers connected together, right? And you just insert the quantum next to it.
Yeah, and we have to observe also the roadmaps for the technology, because serverless technology and future architectures also behind the current quantum era will also help us to decide how to integrate.
Great, Dr. Paik, Dr. Mazurek, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if there are other questions, I know that you'll be available outside. We want to get you to lunch and networking, but just before we do, quick comments from our CEO, Stu Solomon, but two quick things. We heard just, I think, an amazing set of speakers and panelists today. My huge thanks, our huge thanks. Connected DMV is privileged and honored to host this Quantum World Congress and to bring this global ecosystem together. And I think we've seen tremendous representation of that rich and robust ecosystem today. So please, if you need anything, look for folks of their name badge with Connected DMV, and we will do everything we can to help you. So with that, just a few comments from Stu Solomon, CEO of Connected DMV.
Thank you much. What a great set of discussions today, and I think it's just a great indication of how different parts of the world are coming together to figure out how to collaborate and advance this general wide topic of data centers. But I think we're particularly pleased to see the cross-sector participation. So we can look at industry sectors, and we can look at life sciences and energy and defense and a lot of different categories and the use cases we heard discussed in some of the discussions today. But I think the importance of coming together across industry, academia, the research community, government, the funding community, and the like, that cross-section coming together is vitally important. The Quantum World Congress is structured to do just that, so we appreciate your participation as part of that, and we hope these next couple of days will be enriching and rewarding as you meet new people and hear some particularly great topics in the other sessions as well. Thank you for being here today. There is a light lunch provided on this day of workshops and boot camps today, so there is a light lunch outside. You're welcome to grab that. Have a seat before the next sessions, and after today ends, we look forward to seeing you in the general session where everyone will come together, and plenary in the morning, and that session will begin at 8. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.